Naturally, this feeling only lasted for a split second. After all, Elder Jiang was already a gold core expert. He quickly returned back to reality and quietly raised his spiritual energy to oppose this youth's imposing oppression. The expression on his face was still the benevolent old man expression as he smiled. It was merely a giant misunderstanding, that's all. Genius Dr. Shi, there's no need to fuss over such minor matters. Lao Fu merely heard of Genius Dr. Shi's exceptional medical skills. So Lao Fu wanted to invite Genius Dr. Shi over to compare medical notes with you. A mutual exchange of assistance. Hushi said. Oh, her intonation was an unable-to-be-said carelessness. Compare medical notes? Just in order to call me over to compare medical notes. You find people to kill, burn, and abduct people? Elder Jiang, this way of comparing medical notes is really new, really unusual. Ah, why don't I come to give you some advice? Elder Jiang's eyebrows raised as he chuckled. Oh, there's also this type of matter? Having said this, he seemingly turned around to blame Dr. Xie, who was standing behind him. Chongming, what did you do? Didn't I tell you to go invite Genius Dr. Xie? How can you touch as you wish? Dr. Xie's eyes changed. How could he not understand his master's meaning? At once, he looked at Hushi with a face filled with remorse. Genius Dr. Shi somewhat misunderstood. Originally, we respectfully came to request for you. Who would have thought that the subordinates at your manor were unable to differentiate good from bad? Without distinguishing between right and wrong, they regarded us as bad people. My subordinates were helpless and could only resist. Who would have imagined that when we resisted, they didn't grasp appropriate behavior? Bringing Shaoli Gunyang was also in order to get Genius Dr. Shi to come. We really wish for you to properly apologize. As for those youngsters that didn't know propriety and offended Genius Dr. Shi, I already firmly taught them a lesson. Wishing Genius Dr. Shi is big and generous, don't bother about them. These words that Dr. Xie spoke were both gentle and forceful, with a degree of propriety. When Elder Jiang heard them, he was immensely pleased. He couldn't help but stroke his beard and smile. If Genius Dr. Shi is still dissatisfied, it wouldn't be a bother for me to completely kill those several subordinates in order to help you vent your anger. But if I was to say it, your B courtyard, the people that died were merely just several slaves, nothing more. Dragging them over to sell at the market wouldn't earn you more than a few coins. Genius Dr. Xie, if you feel that you have suffered a loss, I will pay you back 10 times the amount. Correct, nothing more than a few insignificant subordinates. They're only worth a few coins. Hushi slightly evoked the corners of her mouth. Her voice was gloomy and slow. What Elder Jiang said is correct. Having heard what was said, a thread of happiness flashed through Elder Jiang's mind, and at once he said, Since Genius Dr. Shi is so fair and reasonable, it would be better to follow me. But he didn't get to finish speaking when he suddenly saw a purple vine fly out from Hushi's wrist. Like lightning, the purple vine divided into 10 in the air, and facing all directions it went out. In the blink of an eye, it penetrated 10 guards' chests. Before they could even come back to reality, it ended their lives. 10 purple vines floated around in the air, resembling a purple barrier. It also emitted a pungent bloody smell. Dr. Xie's face became extremely ugly and he sternly pointed at Hushi. Shiyu, don't be shameless. We had good intentions and treated you with respect. Yet you have the impertinence to raise your hand when Elder Jiang was speaking. Are you impatient of living? The smiling expression on Hushi's face slightly changed. Her finger lightly caressed the purple abyss vine as she sneered at him. What? Didn't you say, it's merely a few insignificant subordinates, nothing more? Not worth any coins. Why are you angry now? Minor matters. Be what? You literally slaughtered everyone in her courtyard. If you guys wish, I can go to the marketplace to buy a dozen more and compensate you guys? These words, didn't Elder Jiang just moments ago say them with his own mouth? At this moment, Elder Jiang's benevolent expression finally had a small crack. His expression when looking at Hushi became colder and gloomier. Dr. Xie knew that Elder Jiang had moved to the point of wanting to kill. His heart was carefree as he coldly looked towards Hushi, mockingly saying, Having been called Genius Dr. Shi, you really think you're a genius doctor? I'm telling you, it's best if you don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Today, if you obediently surrender and pay allegiance to my Jiang manner, we'll forget about this. If you dare to resist, your subordinates' end will be your end. At this moment, Elder Jiang's voice also turned frosty. Merely a few insignificant subordinates, if they died, then they died. It counts as an offer of apology for my subordinates offended Genius Dr. Shi. But Genius Dr. Shi, clearly understand your situation. Offending my Jiang family wouldn't serve any benefit for you. Having heard what was said, Hushi lowly began to laugh, which slowly changed to arrogant laughter. Oh, I seem to have forgotten to tell you. Just a moment ago, I already visited your Jiang family's laboratory and found your hostages inside. Seeing as you guys were so enthusiastic and hospitable to my Shaoli, I also gave Elder Jiang a very small gift. By this time, Elder Jiang and Dr. Xia's faces greatly changed. Dr. Xia involuntarily yelled out, "One. You visited the underground room? What did you do in there?" Hushi lifted her eyes up. Under her long eyelashes was a pair of glorious and starry eyes. However, they contained a cold light. Didn't do anything, It's nothing more than a fire, that completely burning all the things inside, including those alive but inferior to death medicinal fertilizers, and also all the bound black spirit plants. Unexpectedly you burned all our spirit plants. Dr. Xia loudly roared. Because he was extremely angry and distressed, his face warped. Do you know how much heart's blood we spent? How many generations we had accumulated in order to be able to raise those bound black spirit plants? Elder Jiang was also angered until his face turned blue. The gaze he looked at Hushi with no longer contained any fake good-naturedness. All that was left was cold-heartedness. Shiyu, do you really think that this Lao Fu wants your replenishing arteries and veins extinct skill, and will just ask for it from your mouth? As long as you're captured and we use a searching soul method on you, you will no longer be able to keep your secret. And unable to tell good from bad, yellow-mouthed child too. Lao Fu wants you to regret your conduct today. Elder Jiang didn't get to finish speaking when he saw a purple shadow flying towards him. Indeed, this was Hushi directly mounting a sneak attack. Elder Jiang coldly snorted and disdainfully said, "Nothing more than an insignificant foundation establishment stage martial artist, yet wants to sneak attack Lao Fu, simply overestimating one's capabilities." Finished speaking, he didn't even take out a magic weapon. His large, elegant gown suddenly waved. All one heard was "Pa," and he had ruthlessly threw out the purple vine that was heading towards him. The strength Elder Jiang used to throw was enormous. The purple vine was thrown very far away, and one after another, they all hit a wall. Even the wall had a small spider web-like crack in it. Elder Jiang felt very proud of himself in his heart, but he suddenly heard Dr. Xia's alarmed shout, "Elder Jiang, save me!" His face greatly changed. Turning his head, he witnessed Dr. Xia, who already had 3 or 4 purple vines twisting around him, hoisting him high up in the air and flying in Hushi's direction. This youngster. The purple vines just then were simply part of the plan to create a diversion. One involuntarily yelled out. He lost control of how loud his voice was too. Yellow-mouthed child. Something used to call satirical, ignorant children. Birthday update, 3/4, nearly there. Fun fact about myself. In my home, I actually speak Cantonese, not Mandarin. The actual person she wanted to attack was Xie Chongming. He saw that Dr. Xia was right in front of Hushi, and Hushi had already picked up a long sword infused with cold light. Elder Jiang's complexion became extremely unsightly. With a loud roar, he threw himself over. "You dare!" But before he fell down, he heard shwa 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 sounds. Immediately following that, Dr. Xia let out a mournful howl. His entire body resembled a drum. Dropping on the floor with a thump, he incessantly rolled around. Yes, exactly like a drum. Because the current Dr. Xia had already had his 4 limbs chopped off by the identical vines. All that was left over was a head attached to an upper body. His arms and legs were laid to the side, on the floor. His fingers had already began to turn blue, but they were still moving around neurotically. Hushi slowly walked up to Dr. Xia, who was ceaselessly shouting. She smiled innocently and softly. "Dr. Xia, When you let people kill wet Nurse Chin and take out her internal organs, were you happy? Oh, I think you were definitely happy. She let out a light sigh. Therefore, I don't mind letting you feel even happier. The words had just come out when the long sword in her hand flew out like a phantom, heading towards Dr. Xie's face to say hello. Dr. Xie's eyes resembled death. They were full of alarm and despair. Shortly, he no longer had eyes. His face didn't have a nose, ears, eyebrows, and eyes anymore. He still had a mouth, but his mouth no longer had a tongue. He couldn't make any noises. But it didn't matter, he still had his ears. He could still hear sounds. He also had his consciousness. The current pain on his body tortured him to the point of hovering between life and death. Hushi regained the long sword, but she didn't bother to wipe the bloodstain on it. Rather, she directly threw the long sword away. At last, she finally looked upon Dr. Xie. Her voice was soft and she had a tender expression as she said, "Although you killed wet Nurse Chen and tortured Xiaoli, I've still decided that you can't die too easily. Now you are unable to see, talk, walk, or do anything. But with a martial artist's valiant body, you won't die so easily either. You can't even kill yourself. You will suffer this hellish torture every day and every night for a long time, incapable of freeing yourself or escape. I trust that you'll feel extremely happy about this feeling." On the floor, Dr. Xie, who couldn't even be said to have a body anymore, frantically trembled. He twisted and turned, but nobody spared him a glance anymore and nobody cared about his life or death anymore. To Hushi, he was already a dead man. Wet Nurse Chen's hatred has already been revenged. To Elder Jiang, Xie Chongming, having lost both his hands and feet, and being unable to look or see, had already lost all his value. He was no longer worthy of paying any attention to. It was just that everyone turned speechless for half a day after seeing Hushi's ruthless methods. Clearly they're nothing more than 16 or 17 years old. Didn't expect that when he cut off someone's 4 limbs and removed their eyes, ears, mouth and nose, his expression still wouldn't have the slightest change. No, his face still carried a breathtaking smile. This youth really is too terrifying. Even Elder Jiang had these thoughts. He originally wanted to attract him to his side, but he retrieved these thoughts. A thread of fear rose in his heart. If this youngster was allowed to mature, perhaps even he wouldn't be his match. So, after he obtained the extinct skill of replenishing arteries and veins, he must completely destroy this youth. Thinking up to here, Elder Jiang took a deep breath. His cold gaze looked towards Hushi as he slowly said, "Looks like you won't choose to surrender and pay allegiance to my Jiang family?" Hushi held onto the purple abyss vine again and lightly laughed. "Old fart, I dare to surrender and pay allegiance. Do you dare to receive it? Just based on some Luosi Jiang family, you want me to surrender and pay allegiance? Don't dream too big. In this world, the people who can make me obedient and surrender haven't been born yet." The fury in Elder Jiang's eyes flashed as he coldly said, "Good, very good. Nothing more than an insignificant foundation establishment stage. And one's way of speaking really isn't small. Originally I still wanted to give you face, but seeing as you're unable to tell good from bad, I won't stand on ceremony." One. When he finished speaking, a cyan flag suddenly appeared in his hand. This flag's appearance resembled the black flag Feng Yunjing carried inside the white fog, but it to be a lot less imposing when compared to that black flag. When the cyan flag appeared in Elder Jiang's hand, it was only the size of his palm, but when spiritual energy was poured in, it suddenly grew in size. Elder Jiang lowly roared, "Thousand Wind Blade." The cyan flag flew up and suddenly swirled up into a tornado, completely encircling Hushi. Once she was trapped inside the tornado, Hushi felt an immense pressure. This tornado was actually formed with countless wind blades, and every wind blade had the spiritual pressure and attack force of a gold core stage martial artist. Inside the hurricane, Hushi had no way to move. She could only passively defend. Under these straitened circumstances, her body quickly developed numerous bruises of all shapes and sizes. And this was under the purple abyss vine protecting her at full force. If not, she wouldn't have merely received bruises. Seeing Hushi's sorry figure inside the tornado, Elder Jiang couldn't help but sneer at her. "How are things? Do you know the distance between Foundation Establishment stage and Gold Core stage now?" Did you really think you could strut around just because you had a little bit of skill? Today you will learn that there are mountains beyond mountains, people beyond people, too. While saying this, Elder Zhang's hands raised and a large concentration of spiritual energy poured into the cyan flag. Quickly, the wind blades surrounding Hushi picked up their speed by a few degrees. Although Hushi didn't receive any serious injuries, the purple abyss vine was cut everywhere because it was protecting her. Occasionally, purple plant juice would drip down. Hushi's heart gradually became anxious, and in her consciousness, she chid at the purple abyss vine. She wanted it to first protect itself, not to use its own spiritual energy to protect herself. But for the first time, the purple abyss vine was determined to resist against her command. No matter how badly it got cut up by the wind blades, it continued to protect Hushi. Even if its vines were breaking off, root by root, it didn't consent to allowing her receive any mortal injuries. Elder Jiang laughed out loud. Don't struggle, this pure wind flag, when paired with the 1,000 wind blade, is actually my unique skill. As long as you're trapped inside, even high-level gold core stage martial artists wouldn't be able to even think about coming out. You're merely an insignificant foundation establishment stage youngster. Do you really think you can rely on some magical plant, with unknown origins, and be able to get out of the 1,000 wind blade? Don't dream anymore. I advise you to hand over the replenishing arteries and veins extinct method now. This way I may still give you a way out. If you continue refusing to listen to reason, I can also beat you into a useless person, and take out the things I want from your brain. By then you better not regret. 1. Stand on ceremony. He won't be nice anymore. 2. Mountains beyond mountains, people beyond people. There's always someone more talented. The information obtained from the soul-searching technique was guaranteed to be true, but there was a 90% chance it would be damaged. But unless it was absolutely essential, Elder Jiang didn't want to use this method. Elder Jiang was howling with laughter. His heart was content. But he suddenly heard a loud sound. Pung. The hurricane originally spinning around Hushi suddenly, violently began to shake. Soon after, a crack even appeared. A childlike voice carrying some mischievousness started laughing. Smelly old man. This tornado can't be broken from the inside, but it can be from the outside, easily. The voice just came out when Hushi came out of the crack, with a body full of wounds, carrying a purple abyss vine riddled with scars. Following Hushi leaving, the 1,000 wind blades that made up the tornado quickly disappeared into thin air, and a blood-covered small dragon hung by Hushi's side. Facing Hushi, it mischievously laughed. Lauda, I already tidied up that other group. Hi. I didn't pull your back leg. The light in Hushi's eyes dimmed a bit as she crouched down to carry the little golden dragon. It didn't know when her hand had so much medicinal powder, but she lightly spread it on the fierce wounds on its flesh, softly saying, Didn't I tell you to run when there was danger? The medicinal powder was spread across its body, causing the little golden dragon's aching body to tremble. But in spite of this, it still willfully laughed. Lauda, you're so brave and fierce. I am your Xiao Di. How can I run away? Isn't that losing your Lauda's face? Hee, no matter what, it's Benzun. Because I was undaunted by the danger, I was able to damage that trash tornado. Lauda, you owe me a favor. Got it. Hushi used gauze to wrap up its wounds before softly saying, Obediently enter my space, and when Lauda teaches a lesson to these bad people, I'll make delicious food for you. The little golden dragon's eyes brightened. Rubbing against Hushi's wrist, he didn't hesitate to go back inside her space. Elder Zhang's complexion became grave and avaricious. The way he looked at Hushi seemed as if he was looking at a monster. Didn't expect that you not only had a 9-tailed spirit fox, but you also had a golden dragon. If I can obtain the golden dragon, 9-tailed spirit fox, and the replenishing arteries and veins extinct method, don't even talk about joining the doctor association. Even if it was returning to my family, it would be an easy feat. How could an ordinary person think that an insignificant foundation establishment stage martial artist would have so many treasures on their body? Ha. My being able to capture you today is extremely lucky. When he finished speaking, the cool breeze flag was once again taken out. Rising into the air, It also simultaneously picked up dust. At the same time, Elder Jiang also flew up in the air. Arrogantly looking at Hushi, he disdainfully said, "You thought that just because you escaped the 1,000-wind blade once, you would be able to escape from my hands. Hee, if I can activate the 1,000-wind blade the first time, I can activate it a second time. Moreover, this time's 1,000-wind blade will be even stronger than last time's." After a moment, hula was heard and the cool breeze flag began to violently shake, swirling up an immense sandstorm. This time it won't only be dust and tree leaves. Even the tiles and bricks on the house will be picked up into the hurricane. So much so that even the hill shook and swayed. Hushi's complexion was grave and a blue and red long sword appeared in her hand. She got this sword from Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory. It was the sword that fit her the most now. Li Shui's sword. It had both the water attribute and fire attribute. But before Hushi could move the sword, the purple abyss vine in her hand seemed to have not listened to her command and abruptly rose up into the air. One Xiaodi, younger brother. Little Purple. Hushi let out a cry of surprise. With all her might she prayed to the gods, wanting to bring Little Purple back. But the purple vine seemed determined, completely ignoring Hushi's order. It knocked against the cyan flag, releasing the hurricane. The only sound was pung pung pung, repeatedly loudly sounding out. Under Hushi's alarmed gaze, she saw the thick purple vine fly high up then come crashing back down. Following that, thick purple juice flowed down the side of Hushi's leg. Soon after, a cyan flag had been rolled up, swaying and wobbling. It was brought in front of Hushi. Hushi could perceive that the purple abyss vine wanted to help improve her mood. Its scattered leaves softly swayed around, seeming to be both taking credit for its achievement and asking for forgiveness. Clearly it had been cut everywhere by the cool breeze flag's hurricane, so miserable. But Hushi could sense the purple abyss vine's consciousness, very happy, very cheerful. Can help master really is too great. Can punish the scoundrel that caused Dan Dan to cry, really is too great. Hushi let out a soft breath and no longer attempted to reissue the flame. Instead she took the cool breeze flag from the purple abyss vine and extended her hand to softly touch it. "Little Purple, thank you," Hushi slowly said. "But in the future, you're not allowed to disobey my command and act on your own initiative. Otherwise I'll remove our master and pet contract, do you hear me?" The purple vine shook, and its leaves started drooping down. Feeling wronged and trying to curry favor, it rubbed against Hushi's wrist. Hushi's pressed down on her forehead. This group of fellows really didn't let people be worry-free. These fellows really let people love dearly and take pity on them. Ah. Her voice deepened. "Youngster, you can rest assured. I'll definitely make the old fools who hurt Xiaoli and you guys pay the price. You guys have to have some faith in this Lauda, do you understand?" Finished speaking, her fair wrist moved, and the purple abyss vine quickly returned to her space. And her deeply cold gaze looked towards the distant Elder Zhang's ugly complexion. At this moment, Elder Zhang's complexion was extremely unsightly. He didn't expect his own cool breeze flag to be stolen by that purple devil plant. Although the cool breeze flag wasn't the most difficult to deal with magic weapon on him, this type of shame from being hit by the younger generation caused his killing intent towards Hushi to deepen. Thinking up to here, Elder Jiang quickly took out a long sword, sneering. "You think that just because Lao Fu doesn't have the cool breeze flag anymore I won't be able to resist you anymore? Simply is indulging in wishful thinking. Qianzi sword, attack for me." After his words sounded out, the flying sword suddenly transformed into thousands of reflections of swords and began going towards Hushi. Soon the sword reflections flew in front of Hushi, but her face still had the ice-cold smile, and she didn't show a bit of movement to resist it. At this moment, silver needles appeared on her hand and quickly entered each of the major acupuncture points. Hushi's movements were extremely fast, and her expression was extremely concentrated. Even if the flying sword appeared in front of her and cut her clothes, she still seemed to lack any awareness. A moment later, the blood-stained youth, in the middle of all the sword reflections, lifted her head up. Using a cold voice she slowly said, "You want my replenishing arteries and veins extinct method? Good, I'll give it to you. When you arrive in hell, I'll personally roast it for you." After saying this, The spiritual energy in her body suddenly rose up, and a burst of imposing manner surged up and came out. She painstakingly didn't move the protective cover, and pushed out all the reflections of the swords surrounding her. The 1,000 reflections of the flying swords all turned back into one. But they didn't return to Elder Jiang. Instead, with a pung sound, it fell on the ground and lost the luster it previously had. Elder Jiang looked towards the youth in front of him. His foot stumbled as he kept walking backwards. His face was filled with shock. You. Gold core, how can you have the smell of a gold core martial artist? Little demon, in the end, what are you? What did you do just now? He just saw the youth's fiery gaze as the spiritual energy in his body frantically swelled and inky black, satiny hair flew around without wind. The entire person emitted an imposing power, pressing down on him. Where did they resemble a mere foundation establishment stage martial artist? They were clearly genuinely at gold core stage. In reality, at this moment, Hushi wasn't feeling too well. Just now, she used the silver needles to prick her acupuncture points, expanding her channels. In fact, this was a type of method that ignited the dantian and promoted strength. Hushi had used this method in her past life before. It was just that, at that time, she didn't have spiritual power. What was ignited was actually inner power inside her dantian. Using this method, one could quickly promote one's body, but the cost was burning one's vitality. In her previous life, each minute she spent in this forced state, she exchanged approximately 1 year of her life. And naturally, at this moment, this method of igniting her dantian's spiritual power also needed compensation. But in order for wet Nurse Chun and Xiao Li's revenge, Hushi threw caution to the wind and she couldn't change anything now. Elder Jiang suddenly recovered from his shock, and the spiritual power in his body rushed up. Qianzi sword, which had originally fallen to the side, hummed and rose up and rushed towards Hushi. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that Hushi's spiritual power was still unstable, and kill him when he was unprepared. But what caused Elder Jiang to become surprised was that when the Qianzi sword touched Hushi's side, it suddenly got catapulted away. Unexpectedly, it didn't even get to damage the spiritual power-powered protective cover over Hushi. It was the same as gold core stage. It was obvious to him that at this moment, Hushi's spiritual power was far more powerful than his. At this moment, during Elder Jiang's bewildered state, the corners of Hushi's mouth lifted up into a ridiculing smile. She faintly said, "So the 1,000-wind blade is just like this, nothing more." At this moment, Hushi was scattering the cool breeze flag, the same way Elder Jiang did when he was releasing the 1,000-wind blade, in her sea of knowledge. Zijin Palace Hall's Mahao inheritance, secret duplication method. When she advanced to gold core stage, this magic, which she had recently learned, began to automatically work. Originally, it seemed to be the large and formidable 1,000-wind blade, deconstructing and recombining, one by one, in her mind. It was no longer a secret. When she finished speaking, Hushi's mind moved and the cool breeze flag in her hand flew out. As Elder Jiang's reaction was still catching up, the cool breeze flag became an engulfing sky storm, advancing towards Elder Jiang. What? 1,000-wind blade. This can't be. Elder Jiang let out a cry of surprise, practically dumbstruck. This is actually my Jiang family's own skill. How can you use it? Moreover, that cool breeze flag had already been used by me. How can you use it? Elder Jiang let out furious shouts as the twisting hurricane in front of him grew larger and larger, eventually enveloping him inside it. Inside the hurricane, sounds of Elder Jiang's angry questions, depressed groans, as well as the sound of the wind blades cutting his clothing and flesh. But this scene continued to happen until a violent boom was suddenly heard in the center of the storm. Immediately, the entire hurricane exploded open. Leaves, sand, and dust settled on the ground as the hurricane gradually faded away. Lacking strength, the cool breeze flag also fell down into Hushi's hands. Elder Jiang's eyes were blood-red as he rigidly watched Hushi, who was nearby. His eyes were filled with hatred and unspeakable fear. At this moment, his complexion was pale, and there were bloodstains on his mouth. His clothes were all torn, and his body was filled with cuts from the wind blades. How could he still possess the relaxation he had previously? It was extremely clear that in order to eliminate the Thousand Wind Blade, he paid a price. Naturally, Hushi didn't expect a small tornado would be able to get rid of this old fart. But she faintly laughed. Old fool, the feeling of being injured by your own magic weapons isn't bad, right? Elder Jiang became so angered his body shook. He suddenly took out some medicine pills and stuffed it in his mouth, fiercely looking at Hushi. Did you think that the Thousand Wind Blade flag was my most lethal magic weapon? You've merely learned a bit of superficial knowledge. Yet you dare to strut around in front of me. Right now, I'm going to use my unique skill to dismember your body, you shameless youngster. If you have the ability, use my tricks again to come see me. He just finished speaking when the pressure from spiritual power in his body began pressing down harder. And inside his hand, a twinkling thunder light, golden long sword appeared. When he waved his hand, the sound of thunder suddenly echoed from the long sword. Thunder and wind rushing movement. Smelly youngster, drop dead for me. Momentarily, the entire desolate residence shook and countless pieces of clay and sand picked up in the hurricane and headed towards Hushi. At the same time, a clap of thunder and lightning which caused people's blood to run cold, sounded out. Elder Jiang had the wind and thunder dual spiritual roots. Although it couldn't be compared to heavenly spiritual roots, in Miluo continent, it could be considered a rarely seen good attribute. For him to get to today's achievement, he had used countless precious spiritual pills. And adding on 100 years of bitter cultivation, he had achieved gold core stage with great difficulty. If he lost to this yellow-mouthed child in front of him, what did his 100 years of payment count as? Hushi had been enveloped inside the hurricane. Her spiritual protective cover was constantly being blown by the wind, causing it to become unstable and crack before maintaining itself again. Hushi's expression was extremely calm. Her two eyes distributed warm rays of golden lights, and in the blink of an eye, she moved towards Elder Jiang. When the wind and thunder rushing movement had been completely finished, Hushi's mouth curved up into a dazzling smile. A moment later, when she flipped her palm up, a wind and thunder-infused long sword appeared in her hand. Following that, in front of Elder Jiang's astonished gaze, Hushi resolutely waved the long sword. For a moment, hurricane and hurricane bumped, thunder and thunder and lightning tangled together and rumbled. The entire courtyard seemed as if it could no longer withstand the battle, and the wall angrily collapsed. And a moment later, the hurricane which was originally attacking Hushi seemed to have been swallowed. Slowly it became weaker and melted away. At the same time, the earth-shaking thunder and lightning hurricane turned around and headed to attack Elder Jiang. Not possible. This isn't possible. This is absolutely not possible. Elder Jiang's eyes were filled with fright and despair. The thunder and wind rushing movement was their Jiang family's unique skill. Even his own family's younger generation could only learn this secret method through word of mouth. Why could this youth learn it today? In the end, who was she? A moment later, he heard Hushi's clear and ridiculing voice sound out from a nearby place. Didn't you say that I could learn your unique skill? Thunder and wind rushing movement. In the end, it's just this and nothing more. Ah! Elder Jiang let out unresigned shouts. Following this, he was completely engulfed by the hurricane produced by wind and thunder rushing movement. Soon after, there were his bellows and the sound of his body being torn apart by the hurricane. This was his unique skill. Now it had been completely exerted on his body. This wasn't only the torture on the body, it also ruined one's spirit. After the hurricane, Elder Jiang's body was similar to a piece of cloth. With a bump, he fell down on the floor and spit out a big mouthful of blood. There wasn't an intact piece of flesh on his body anymore. With a speed visible to the naked eye, his appearance and skin quickly aged. Hushi held onto a long sword in her hand. Advancing forward, she arrogantly looked at him. Out of fear, Elder Jiang instinctively wiggled his body, wanting to recoil. He repeatedly mumbled, "Forgive me. Forgive me. I am Jiang family's person. I can give you countless benefits. If you kill me, Elder Jiang certainly won't let you off. I already reported the matter of your replenishing arteries and veins method to my family." As long as you don't kill me, I'll conceal you from my family. Hushi's mouth curved up into a shallow smile. Her pretty facial features were outstanding, but she also had the characteristics of a youth's immaturity. But a moment later, the long sword in her hand whooshed out. It resolutely broke Elder Jiang's dantian. Naturally, I'll let you live. I'll let you live in pain for a while more. If not, how can you bear the pains you put onto my family, Shaoli? Elder Jiang let out a heart-tearing and lung-splitting howl. His entire body rapidly aged, his skin wrinkled, and his originally white skin turned whiter. Even a few of his teeth fell out. With his dantian shattered, his cultivation was considered gone, and he became an ordinary person. An ordinary person who was over 100 years old, who was old and weak, who wanted to obtain this. But unfortunately, Elder Jiang had eaten countless talented treasures, so his vitality was difficult to lessen. He had clearly become an old man who was over 100, but he hadn't died. He could only painfully and bitterly look towards Hushi. At this moment, Hushi couldn't stand it anymore. The long sword in her hand dropped with a pung sound to the ground and her knees turned soft. Kneeling to the ground, she spit out a mouthful of blood. The silver needles in her body flew out, and her dantian finally stopped igniting. Lauda, are you all right? The little golden dragon raced out of her space, and quickly began to support Hushi's body. Dan Dan also made his way out of her space and began weeping by Hushi's side. Mother, what's wrong with you? Don't scare Dan Dan. As he was talking, he was also sending spiritual chi to Hushi's body. When Dan Dan's spiritual chi and Hushi's entered her body, it quickly allowed her ignited dantian to feel much better. Hushi's complexion was still deathly pale, but she extended her hand to lightly rub Dan Dan's head. Be good, Dan Dan, nothing is wrong with mother. Dan Dan held Hushi's hand and checked all over it, several times, before confirming that his beloved mother was truly all right. Then he began to cry again. Mother, don't scare Dan Dan. Dan Dan doesn't want to see you wounded, nor see you spitting out blood. Bad mother, you threw Dan Dan back into your space and got injured. In the future, Dan Dan will no longer trust you. Well, Hushi could coolly and elegantly laugh when a group of martial artists was being beat, but towards Dan Dan's sobbing, she lacked any means to. She knitted her eyebrows, feeling a headache. To the side, the little golden dragon watched the good play. Only when he saw Hushi was helpless to do anything, he walked forward to say, Dan Dan, the bad people who injured Lauda aren't dead yet. Call Little Purple. Let's properly entertain them together. Wanwa, the sound of a child's cry. Upon hearing those words, Dan Dan stopped crying and his short legs slowly walked towards Elder Jiang's side. His round, small, pig-like body jumped onto Elder Jiang's stomach, shouting, Villain, you harmed mother. I'll kill you. The weight of Dan Dan pressing down on Elder Jiang caused his eyes to rotate to the white parts, and caused him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Hushi stopped the several fellows, laughing helplessly. Don't play anymore, he's so weak right now, he won't be able to bear you guys tossing him around. If we let him die so easily, won't that be too convenient for him? Lauda, do you have any good means? The little golden dragon excitedly jumped around in the air. We must let him properly experience pain. Elder Jiang raised his head, his eyes were filled with despair and hatred as he loudly roared at Hushi. My Jiang family won't let you off. Before he could finish yelling, copious amounts of medicinal powders appeared in Hushi's hands, which he then proceeded to sprinkle over his wounds. Suddenly, Elder Jiang, who had originally been at his last dying breath, began to violently shout as he rolled around on the floor. And what was even more terrifying was that his skin began to fall off in pieces. It resembled the snow-white lime on a wall that had been cracked and was falling off, exposing his bloody red internal flesh. The little golden dragon turned left and right in the air as he looked at the main culprit in such a miserable state, feeling indescribably excited. Lauda, what type of medicine is this? Very ferocious, free and unfettered powdered medicine. Hushi carried the confused Dan Dan, covering his eyes so he couldn't see the bloody scene as she explained to the little golden dragon. First, your skin falls off in clumps. Next, it's your body's flesh. But even after all his skin and flesh had fallen off, he still won't die. Only until the rotting spreads to his heart and brain can he die. This type of torture will last, approximately, 12 days and nights. He can only endure the suffering, helplessly looking as he slowly inches towards death. Really is a pity, he's merely a common person now. I'm afraid that after a bit of pain torture, his body may not be able to endure anymore. But it's sufficient. Sufficient enough to offset all the pain he set upon Xiaoli's body. It's also sufficient enough to let wet Nurse Chun to be in peace in the 9 springs. Finished speaking, Hushi took back all the magic weapons on the floor, including Elder Zhang's flying sword. Then she ordered the purple abyss vine. Little Purple, carefully search through this desolate residence. I want to ensure that, aside from these 2 old fellows, there isn't any living mouths. After approximately the time it took to burn a stick of incense, this desolate residence, located in the eastern outskirts of Yanjing City, suddenly let out a violent boom. Completely collapsing, it became ruins, enveloped in dense, scary air. Inside the ruins, aside from a monster that lacked all 4 limbs, a nose, mouth, ears, and eyes as well as a bloody person who howled in pain, there weren't any other creatures visible. As a result of this place being remote, and it being late at night, nobody discovered this. Only until the 3rd day, a white-clothed male appeared in front of these ruins. Looking at the squirming freak with an incomplete body and the incessantly wiggling and screaming mincemeat on the floor, he couldn't help but knit his handsome eyebrows, exposing a suspicious expression. Eastern outskirts of Yanjing, he shouldn't have found the wrong place. Clearly it was the day to deliver the goods, but how come there wasn't a shadow of any human beings? Furthermore, even the house had turned into ruins. In the end, what happened? Looking at the monster lacking all 4 limbs who was wiggling at him, it seemed to want to convey something. The white-clothed male expressed a loathing expression on his face. A ball of fire condensed in his hands, and he threw it towards the monster without limbs. All that was heard was Chi-La, before that wiggling monster turned into ashes, disappearing without a trace. The white-clothed male brushed the dust off his clothes and pondered for a moment before a bag appeared in his hands, and the shouting piece of mincemeat was wrapped inside. In Jinling Kingdom, the 4 largest clans, Morong Nalan, Ouyang and Huangfu, were all on par with each other. In Songming Kingdom, Feng family was unrivaled. They were an outstanding and large family. In the entire Songming Kingdom, from the royal family to the sects, nobody dared to bother them. Even in Miluo Continent, one of the 4 biggest sects, Luli sect, was a part of their property. Feng family's official residence was located on Songming Kingdom's Wuliang Mountain. Or, it would be better to say that Wuliang Mountain was entirely considered Feng family's property. The ancestors of Feng family built their paradise in the area with the most dense spiritual qi. They used the blackened phoenix soul as the family's defense and attacker. It could be said that living on the mountain was both dangerous and favorable. It was easily able to be guarded and difficult to attack, making it a beneficial place to cultivate. And this paradise was comparable to the magnificence of immortal palaces, pavilions and kiosks with its engraved corridors and painted halls. But what was most rare was that one didn't even need to meditate cross-legged. By just breathing in, rich spiritual power would circulate inside the body. Being inside was like being inside the 9th level of heaven, outside the world of immortals, letting people wish to linger and forget about going home. So it's surprised that the entire cultivation world scrambled for the chance to be able to enter Feng family. So much so that, even if they became a manservant in Feng family, they would be bringing honor to one's ancestors and become admired by everyone. At this moment, instead the study of the main building of Feng family, a black-clothed male with grave facial expressions was just saying something to a middle-aged male. Naturally, that black-clothed and grave-faced youth was Feng family's young master, Feng Yunjing. Although nowadays Feng Yunjing was in power, regarding major events he still needed the clan elders and his father, Feng Tianba's decision. Regarding this time's loss at Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory, he needed to have an explanation for Feng family's elders. Hearing Feng Tianba's words, the image of Hushi's elegant and delicate expression flashed through his mind before he quickly denied it. It couldn't be him. That person was difficult to deal with, but was only a foundation establishment stage martial artist. Even if they received Zijin Palace Hall's inheritance, what did he count as? He couldn't have obtained Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory. Feng Tianba also quickly turned his thoughts back to Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory. His voice was deep as he said, seeing as Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory can exchange owners, an expert must have been the one who took control. Our Feng family doesn't need to compete against them in the future. As for that spring tree, Honored Sir Mu Hua already said he thought of an alternative method. Our Feng family's secret ministry is planning to plunder. You don't have to worry anymore. When he heard what he said, Feng Yunjing nodded his head. Immediately after, he knitted his eyebrows. But this time, Lianing was unable to obtain Zijin Palace Hall's inheritance. Hung useless person. Feng Tianba coldly snorted, then calmly said, how many years have we been planning? How much resources have been spent on her? How many preparations had been made for her for this trip to the Sealed Dragon Domain? Clearly success should have been assured. Didn't expect that she was defeated under a foundation establishment stage youngster's hand, and even acted so hot-headedly in 100 Herb Mist. Practically is losing all of Feng family's face. If it wasn't for the sake of her master's face, I would have thrown her out of Feng family a long time ago. As Feng Tianba was speaking, anger was rolling over his face in bursts. Recalling the scene outside of the secret territory of Feng Lianying's bare body, he was itching to beat this daughter to death. Originally he wanted to wed her to Nangongyu, firmly fastening him. But it seems like now, these thoughts must be dropped. This trash that can't be seen in public, Nangongyu's eyes are higher than the top. How could she possibly meet his gaze? Speaking of the youngster that stole the Zijin Palace Hall inheritance, Feng Tianba deeply sighed and then handed a jade book to Feng Yunjing. Lowering his voice, he told him, I'm afraid this youngster isn't very simple, you take a look. Feng Yunjing's face was puzzled. Taking the jade book, his expression was deep. A moment later, Feng Yunjing's face returned to his regular, well without ripples face one. Then he let out an astonished expression, lowly saying, able to completely cure Ouyang Haoshuan's fractured meridians, and even his cultivation level was reinstated to how it was previously. Genius Dr. Shiyu father, are you certain they're the same person? Feng Tianba pursued his lips. From what you've said, that youth Shiyu received Zijin Palace Hall's inheritance. That in itself proves that he has medical skills. Adding on to that are his deeds in 100 Herb Mist. He clearly has much higher medical skills compared to Feng Lianing. On the world, there aren't many brilliant doctors. Yet it just happens that two suddenly appear, and both are surnamed Shi. Moreover, I also heard that the genius Dr. Shi who cured Ouyang Haoshuan was a 17 or 18-year-old youth. Therefore, I'm 90% certain that this youth called Shiyu is the genius Dr. Shi that's caused the medical world to go crazy. Talking up to here, Feng Tianba's gaze turned serene. Yunjing, although this time's operation at the secret territory was a fail, you can't say we didn't gain anything from it. Regarding this Shiyu, you must clarify for me, if he truly has such godly methods, our Feng family needs to rush to hold him inside-out hands. A blaze burned in Feng Yunjing's eyes before quickly disappearing, and immediately after, he seemed to have thought of something. His expression was faint as he lowered his voice and asked, but father, how should we deal with Nangongyu? His relationship with that Shiyu appears to be excellent. For that Shiyu he didn't hesitate to clash with me. Feng Yunjing himself didn't know where his thoughts were. He found out that Shiyu could possibly be a woman, and Nangongyu and Shiyu's intimacy was all concealed. Naturally, Feng Tianba thought Nangongyu's favor of Shiyu was due to his medical skills, so his expression was grave as he said, Nangongyu, if you can avoid, then avoid. By all means, you must not go and deliberately provoke him. He isn't someone you can bother right now. Having heard what he said, Feng Yunjing's complexion sunk and his heart was filled with refusal. Nangongyu was at nascent soul stage, he was also at nascent soul stage. And adding on to that was the numerous, difficult to deal with, magical weapons owned by Feng family. Feng Yunjing didn't believe that he would lose to him. Why did father say he was someone he couldn't provoke? Feng Yunjing ground his teeth. Father, don't speak, he only has this bit of skill. Even if he's very difficult to deal with, You're his life-saving benefactor. Don't tell me he can bite the hand that feeds him? Why should we need to avoid him like a taboo? One well without ripples face, poker face. When he heard what was said, Feng Tianba became startled. Then he shook his head. Life-saving benefactor? He hadn't finished speaking when his voice turned mocking halfway through. Feng Yunjing was about to ask when Feng Tianba immediately waved his hand. All you need to know is to not provoke Nangongyu, it'll be all right then. Regarding Shiyu's matters, secretly investigate them. If you're certain, quietly make contact with him. With our Feng family status, as long as he's sensible, I don't believe a mere foundation establishment stage martial artist won't be tempted. As long as Shiyu is willing to submit himself to Feng family. Even Nangongyu can't do anything, right? Feng Yunjing ground his teeth. But father, nowadays, Nangongyu is becoming stronger and stronger and won't consent to join us by marriage. I'm afraid he'll become a big worry for our Feng family in the future. Okay, you don't have to worry about this matter anymore. Feng Tianba waved his hands, preventing him from asking any more questions. If there's nothing else, withdraw first. Feng Yunjing's expression fluctuated, but seeing Feng Tianba's dignified expression, he swallowed any remaining words he had and quickly left the room. After Feng Yunjing retreated, approximately the time it took to burn a stick of incense later, a white figure appeared in the doorway of Feng Tianba's study. This person was precisely the white-clothed male who appeared at Jiang family's other courtyard. At this moment, he was carrying a bag. The bag seemed to have something incessantly squirming inside it. So much so that you could even faintly hear someone's hoarse yells coming from within. When this person entered the study, he humbly saluted Feng Tianba. With a lowered voice he reported, "Clan head, the situation has changed. The underground testing pharmacy in Yanjing's eastern outskirts seemed to have been destroyed by someone. Subordinate used spiritual skills to investigate, and all of the bound black spirit plants have been completely destroyed. There's also this." The white-clothed male shook the bag and it loosened slightly. The bag began to open when the thick smell of rotting blood assaulted one's senses. Accompanying the smell was the sound of a hoarse and broken voice. A mincemeat skeleton appeared in front of their eyes. All the internal organs and blood in the skeleton had filled up the bag. But what was strange was that this person had already turned into this weird monster, but that mutilated skull was completely intact. Furthermore, it could even let out such pained howls. This scene was truly too terrifying and strange. Feng Tianba shook for half a day before saying in disbelief, "This is Elder Jiang?" Once Feng Yunjing exited Feng Tianba's study, his face turned gloomy. When a fragrant and overly sweet woman threw herself into his embrace, it should be warm, fragrant, and jade. But Feng Yunjing suddenly thought of something. When that person neared him, the faint smell of herbal medicine hit him in the face. There wasn't any of the woman's beauty nor pampering. Instead, it was an uncontrollable and strong feeling of indifference. Suddenly, Feng Yunjing felt as if the smell of cosmetics disgusted him. He shook off the woman that threw herself into his embrace and coldly said, "Go away. Seeing you makes me feel nauseous." Finished speaking, his figure disappeared. The woman who had been left inside the pavilion first stared blankly, then her pretty face warped. Previously, she was a servant girl in Feng family, because her appearance was outstanding. She was chosen to be Feng Yunjing's personal servant girl. Being young master's servant girl meant that inevitably, there would be a day she would become young master's woman. Chen Yanner had always been arrogant. She was the prettiest and cleverest woman by young master's side. Although young master's heart was cold, he would occasionally treat her warmly. But today she clearly saw loathing in young master's eyes. Chen Yanner angrily punched the stone pillar, mumbling fragments to herself. Shiyu? In the end, where did this vixen Shiyu that young master speaks of come from? I need to have this person properly investigated. Wanting to seduce young master, I want you to properly understand not knowing shamelessness. Igniting one's dantian, naturally one would need to pay the price. Therefore, after Hushi returned to be courtyard, she didn't even have enough time to relocate everyone inside the secret territory before she sunk into a coma. Dan and the little golden dragon stood by Hushi's side the entire night, Neither of them dared to even move 1 foot away, and Dan Dan cried until his eyes were red and swollen. Wu Xian used his spiritual energy to search for the condition of Hushi's injury, and wrinkled his eyebrows. Hushi's injury was extremely severe. Her Dantian's spiritual energy was close to being drained, but what was even more urgent was that, after losing consciousness, Hushi developed a fever. And this type of fever rendered her incapable of receiving any spiritual energy externally. Even feeding her supplementary spiritual energy, one didn't work. Dan Dan lied down next to Hushi, grabbing her hand. He had cried so much his voice turned hoarse. "Mother, you clearly said that nothing would happen. You said you wouldn't abandon Dan Dan, woo woo woo." To the side, the little golden dragon comfortingly patted the little fellow. But he was also worried sick and couldn't say any comforting words. When they were at Jiang family's other courtyard at the eastern outskirts, he thought that Lao Da's injury wasn't too serious. Lao Da didn't show any symptoms of being an ill person. She could even cheerfully and wittily punish that old BAS. But how could he forget? Lao Da's true cultivation stage was merely Meridian stage. Breaking out into high-level gold core stage would undoubtedly have a price. As the night turned a bit darker, Hushi continued to have a fever. Her face was flushed and she remained unconscious. Dan Dan cried and under the little golden dragon's pacifying, he fell asleep. The little golden dragon lay by the headboard, scouring his inherited memories for any means to save Hushi. Suddenly Wu Xian's, who was standing in the doorway, expression turned cold. He quickly stood up, and a flying sword appeared in his hand. But his flying sword just appeared in his hands when the grave expression on his face turned into shock. He blurted out, "Master Yu, why did you come?" The arriving person was travel-worn, and their face was haggard. Shockingly, it's Nangongyu. Nangongyu completely ignored Wu Xian. He quickly walked towards the front of the bed and softly carried her. Due to her having a fever, the girl's cheeks were flushed and her originally soft and pink lips had lost all their color, and even began showing cracked lines. One supplementary spiritual energy to at least get her to a more stable place in her dantian. Long eyelashes hung down, covering up a pair of cold, phoenix eyes. A faint silhouette shone on snow-white skin, causing the person to appear frail and helpless. It was completely different when compared to her ordinary craftiness, the appearance of not letting anything or person control her. Nangongyu softly let out a breath. The pair of hands that carried Hushi tightened. His heart welled up with regret and pity. "Little girl, why do you have to be so stubborn?" He lowered his head, softly murmuring, "Why didn't you ask for my help? Why can't you rely on me? Am I so unworthy of your trust?" He said such reprimanding words, but his tone was filled with pampering and tenderness. His slender fingers softly played with her messy hair, and his expression was that of someone who was tending to the most precious treasure. The little golden dragon who was sleeping at the head of the bed finally woke up from his dreams and loudly shouted, "You, who are you? Who let you touch Lao Da's body as you wished?" The little golden dragon's yells woke up the originally unconscious Dan Dan. Dan Dan rubbed his swollen eyes, and at a glance, he saw Nangongyu who was carrying Hushi in his embrace. He cried out, "Beautiful Gidge, mother is injured. Quickly save her. You're so awesome. Help mother wake up quicker, okay?" Woo woo woo. Nangongyu's usual calm turned distracted now. The crying spiritual pet before him was a pink pig. Moreover, this little pig called Hushi mother but called him beautiful Gidge. Nangongyu's mouth twitched and turned down. Immediately, he restored his usual calm and indifferently said, "Naturally, my coming here was to come and save Sheer." After saying this, his finger softly cut across his own wrist and very quickly, a dark red trail of blood came out of the wound. "Master Yu, how can you waste blood essence at such an important time?" Wu Xian's face was filled with anxiety. He practically wanted to run over and stop Nangongyu. But one of Nangongyu's cold glances stopped him from acting blindly without thinking. "Don't forget why I pushed the plan earlier." A stern voice containing gloominess was heard. "Wu Xian, I'll forgive you for this time. Next time, if Hushi retains injuries again, you don't have to return to Hell King Manor." After hearing what was said, Wu Xian turned rigid. A slight chill ran across his back, and after a while, he finally mustered up one word: yes. In fact, this time he wanted to teach Hushi a lesson. So when Hushi had him stay in B courtyard, he didn't follow her, and merely gave a protective jade slip. During this time, although Wu Xian's person was at B courtyard, his soul had always been paying attention to the movements of the jade slip. As long as Hushi called for help, he would immediately rush over. He thought that Hushi was merely at foundation establishment stage, and that the opposite side would just have a group of martial artists at high-level meridian stage. In any case, Hushi couldn't possibly be their rival, and by that time, she would certainly cry to him for help. But how could Wu Xian think that Hushi would be able to massacre all the people, and even take down a high-level gold core stage expert, all by herself? Foundation establishment stage battling a gold core stage, This completely exceeded common sense. All that was left was a profound sense of admiration and reverence. Nangongyu coldly snorted and didn't continue speaking. Instead, he brought the wound on his wrist closer to Hushi's mouth and slowly fed it to her. The little golden dragon suspiciously looked at Nangongyu as he snatched Dan Dan. Whispering into Dan Dan's ear, he quietly asked, "This person is green onion or garlic, ah? You let him stay by Lao Da's side? Won't have bad intentions?" Dan Dan blinked his big eyes and flattened his lips. Beautiful Gidge is a good person, he's saved Mother multiple times. Moreover, Dan Dan has seen Mother play and kiss with beautiful Gidge. Long Long, what is benefiting at others' expense? Little golden dragon. When the pure Een blood went into her stomach, her inflamed dantian seemed to have been given spring stream, and slowly returned to its original state. Nangongyu pressed his left hand on Hushi's back and slowly channeled his spiritual energy into her body, cautiously restoring her dantian which had been burned. After the time it took to burn a stick of incense, the pained expression on Hushi's face slowly disappeared, becoming peaceful. But Nangongyu's complexion turned deathly pale. His originally tired eyes had greenish-black ash added onto them. To the side, Wu Xian was full of anxiousness. He wanted to step up and ask to substitute as the person giving Hushi spiritual energy, but he was quickly glared at by Master with his cold eyes. Nangongyu used his hand to feel Hushi's forehead. After ensuring that she no longer had a fever, he loosened his breath and extended his hand to wipe away the perspiration on her forehead. The room turned tranquil and ambiguous. Nangongyu tightly held onto Hushi, and his line of sight never moved away, not even for a second. He wanted to stay like this forever, to have her by his side forever. But right now he couldn't. If his matters weren't finished, then if Hushi were to stay by his side, there was a possibility that danger would happen one day. So much so that she may even die a violent death. This was something he couldn't endure, even if he died. Nangongyu slowly released his hands and stood up. "I'm leaving, take good care of her. Furthermore, don't let Hushi know of my coming here, and you absolutely cannot let other people know either." Finished speaking, he faced the two fellows by Hushi's bedside. "Did you clearly hear me?" The little golden dragon and Dan Dan acted like they were awed and simultaneously nodded their heads. Their appearances were extremely lovable and cute. Nangongyu leaned over to leave a light kiss on Hushi's forehead before turning around to leave. But when he had just reached the doorway, he suddenly turned around. His serene eyes closely watched Dan Dan as he gloomily said, "When you see me next time, you must not call me beautiful Gidge. You have to call me Daddy. Do you hear me?" "Heard. Heard it." Dan Dan's face was dumbfounded. Under Nangongyu's intense gaze, he obediently nodded his head. Wu Xian turned his head to face Bomb. "Master, is threatening Wang Fei's spirit pets really good when she's in a coma?" If he remembered correctly, Wang Fei still hasn't agreed to marry into his house? Hushi felt that this sleep was endless. A painful and burning torture accompanied beside her in sleep. She felt as if she had been thrown into Taishang Laozi's refining pill stove like Monkey Sun was one. It was scalding hot everywhere, it was painful everywhere. This sort of torment continued for a long time. But soon after, someone softly brought her into their embrace. That hug was extremely tender and doting, and even carried traces of familiarity. This allowed her body and mind to relax. Soon after, an ice-cold clear spring and bloody-smelling stream entered her throat and went into her dantian. Following this, the burning pain faded away without a trace. Even her bruised dantian was moistened by this spiritual energy blood, slowly restoring. The early morning's warm sunshine sprinkled across her snow-white and jade-like skin, and stroking her soft hair. Her long eyelashes faintly trembled as Hushi slowly opened her eyes. Mother! Before she could make out everything in front of her, she felt a short and stout heavily crashing into her embrace. Soon after, she heard the child's familiar weeping. One Taishang Laozi's refining pill stove like monkey son. This is a reference to the book Journey to the West. Taishang is a title of respect for Taoists, and Laozi was an ancient Chinese philosopher and writer. Monkey Sun is Sun Wukong a.k.a. the Monkey King. He is most well known from Journey to the West, one of the 4 great classical novels of Chinese literature. Hushi is referring to the time that Sun Wukong was thrown into Laozi's refining pill stove or 8-way trigram crucible. You can read more on this here. Woo woo woo, you're finally awake, mother. Don't die, mother. Don't scare Dan Dan anymore. Woo woo woo. Hushi turned her head to look around her as Dan Dan was crying in her embrace. Circling around in the air staring at her with a happy expression was the little golden dragon, who was also scolding Dan Dan. You fool, Lauda woke up, how can she still die? You're so heavy, throwing yourself onto Lauda. Not even afraid you'll squish Lauda and internally injure her. And Wu Xian, who was standing in the doorway, watching her, let out a loose breath. What surprised Hushi the most was a pale-faced little Gunyang with red eyes who laid on the bed and staring at her as big teardrops tumbled out of her big eyes. Shaoli, Hushi cried out in surprise as a smiling expression appeared on her face. You recovered? But before she could finish asking the question, the little Gunyang let out a big cry and, following Dan Dan, also threw herself onto Hushi. Miss, I'm sorry. It's all because I'm no good. It's because I'm useless. I hurt wet Nurse Chun and caused Miss to receive injuries and fall into a coma. Woo woo woo. By the time it was early morning, Shaoli had already woken up. Under the treatment of the spiritual spring water and nectar from the 1,000-leaf flower, she was already almost completely healed. She could even change back into human form. But after she woke up, she discovered that Hushi wasted a great amount of spiritual qi in order to save her. Not only that, she also concluded a life and death contract with her. She even received injuries in order to revenge her. After the little fox found out about this, she was incessantly worried and blamed herself. She didn't once stop crying. After Hushi woke up and she heard her soft voice, she couldn't bear the sadness and fright she felt over these few days and began to wail. Hushi was made speechless when she saw their appearances when they were afraid she would die, but she also felt touched. She turned around on the bed and slowly circulated her spiritual energy. Then she let out a pleasant smile. Very strange. Apparently the aftermath of my ignited dantian isn't as serious as I thought it was. I feel that my dantian spiritual force is abundant right now and the spiritual qi in my meridians aren't clogged at all. Apparently, my cultivation level even raised a little. Speaking up to here, Hushi carried the plump Dan Dan in her embrace and pinched his pink cheeks. Laughing, she teased. Okay, little crying bag. Look, nothing is wrong with mother. Don't look like the sky is falling down. Dan Dan flattened his mouth and stammered. It wasn't originally like this. Yesterday evening, mother was scalding hot and no matter how loud it was, you didn't wake up. No matter what we did to try and give you spiritual energy, it was no use. Dan Dan was truly really scared that mother would die. If it weren't for after. Dan Dan's words were half said when Wu Xian, who was standing to the side, lightly cougued and walked forward. Wang Fei, the servants inside your courtyard have already been waiting outside for a long time. Because you were not awake, they did not dare to act on their own initiative and deal with the corpses. May I ask whether or not you wish to go outside right now and explain it to them? Hushi hadn't even said anything, but Wu Xian's words caused Dan Dan's complexion to change, and he quickly shut his mouth. Hushi wrinkled her eyebrow and suspiciously casted a glance at Wu Xian, then looked at Dan Dan again. Dan Dan, what were you just saying, if it weren't for after what? Nothing. Nothing. Dan Dan's small head shook like a rattle. Dan Dan never said after. Hushi looked towards the little golden dragon, whose face conveyed a "I don't understand what you're talking about" expression. Mysterious and secretive. What are you up to? Hushi muttered, no longer trying to understand these few fellows, and walked out of the room. Chapter 408 Heavenly Paradise. When Shijia and the others saw that Hushi was healed, they all seemed to become better at the same time as well. Then they suddenly ran up in front of Hushi and kneeled down on the floor with a plop sound. "Miss, you're okay. Really is too great." Clearly they were a group of rough men, but now, each and every one of them was crying. Some were even sobbing, repeatedly saying "Miss." It really caused Hushi to not know whether to laugh or cry. Shijia wiped away his tears and he said, with his voice choked with emotion, "Miss, may I ask, where should we bury Wet Nurse Chen's body? Do you need me to create a burial mound for her behind B Courtyard's mountain?" When he mentioned Wet Nurse Chen, Hushi's eyes dimmed a little, and a thread filled with heavy sorrow streaked through her eyes. She was silent for a long time before softly saying, "No need to, this B Courtyard isn't safe anymore. Soon, we'll have to change our place. Regarding Wet Nurse Chen and the others' bodies, use spiritual jade to preserve them. We will send them to an earthly paradise to be buried." After confirming her own body was all right, Hushi didn't pause and began to arrange a follow-up plan. It was very clear that Nalan family's B Courtyard is no longer safe. Hushi had too many treasures that others coveted, but her strength was too weak. She had no means to display these treasures' former might. If it was just herself, she wouldn't be afraid of anyone coming over to plunder and long for her treasures. But when thinking of Wet Nurse Chen's death and Xiao Li's skinned appearance, lingering fear bubbled forth in Hushi's heart. Ordinary people were innocent. Treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. She could protect Xiao Li, Shijia, and the others for a short period of time, but not for a lifetime. Rather than constantly worrying about their safety, it would be better to think of ways to increase their strength, so that they would be able to defend themselves. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And the best location to promote and protect Shijia and the others was naturally sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory. Before leaving, Hushi had people return this B Courtyard left by Nalan Manor to its former state. She prepared to go outside to purchase some little servant girls and manservants to clean B Courtyard. After all, this was the place that Nalan Hushi and Wet Nurse Chen had lived in for over 10 years, leaving behind many irremovable marks. What's more, if people from Nalan Manor decided to visit one day, this was a good way to pull the wool over their eyes. After leaving, Hushi quickly took out a light dress and entered Song Mountain with everyone in tow. The band sent bursts of bright light and in the blink of an eye, everyone appeared in a dark green grassland. There weren't any pavilions or kiosks here, but there were dark blue lakes, seas of flowers, and green spiritual plants. The sky was dark blue and the spiritual energy in the air was plentiful. There were also the clear sounds of songbirds and insects coming from far away. This let everything be filled with picturesque charm. The three fellows, Dan Dan, the little golden dragon, and Xiao Li, had long ago stopped controlling themselves. They ran into the cluster of flowers to roll around and play. Even the purple abyss vine was unwilling to lose out. Its purple vines danced about as it ran towards the three fellows to play. One could hear their bursts of laughter and for no apparent reason, their hearts would feel lighter and brighter. But everyone who entered this heavenly paradise, aside from Hushi and those several simple-minded spiritual pets, who would still have the mind to be lively and play, they all had their eyes wide open and didn't dare believe everything they saw. Zhang San no. Now he had already changed his name to Shi San. Chapter 409 Settle in Sealed Dragon Territory's Secret Territory. Shi-san couldn't help but seize the meat on his face, muttering, "Miss you. You're saying we'll be settling here? The spiritual energy here is richer than Water Moon's Zongbao Mountain. Settle? Settle here? What? You don't want to? No. No. Not that. How could I not be willing?" Shi-san excitedly answered. Even his words shook. "Miss, how did you find this place? Are we still inside Song Mountain? Such a valuable place, ah. Those cultivators won't come and fight with us, right? Hushi faintly smiled and didn't mind everyone as she dropped a bomb on them. This is Sealed Dragon Domain's most comfortable Greenwood realm. Right now, I'm the master of Sealed Dragon Domain. The entire Sealed Dragon Domain is considered my territory. You say, can or can we not settle here? Sealed Dragon Territory's secret territory. This time it wasn't only Shi-san. Even Shi-jia and the others let out cries of surprise. Heavens! What was Miss saying? This was Sealed Dragon Territory's secret territory. It was the place all those cultivators forcibly took earlier, and the place filled with countless treasures. Sealed Dragon Territory? It was the Sealed Dragon Territory that even nascent soul stage martial artists were somewhat afraid of and wouldn't enter to explore unless they had made preparations. It was that place. The place that, to them previously, wasn't completely out of reach. The Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory that they didn't even dreaming of going to join the chaos to treasure hunt. Moreover, Miss was now the owner of Sealed Domain's secret territory. In other words, every inch inside this secret territory, and every magic weapon all belonged to Miss? Shi-san suddenly felt a bit muddle-headed, and felt that it was somewhat hard to breathe. Heavens, he really wanted to know, what other world-shattering news did his family's Miss have to give afterwards to cause him to explode? Shi-jia and the others' thoughts, by comparison, were much more blunt and simple. After Hushi confirmed that this secret territory, that everyone was scrambling to plunder, was theirs, everyone let out enthusiastic shouts. The little golden dragon unsteadily flew in front of the excited crowd of people, arrogantly pouring cold water on them. If it wasn't for the fact that you are Lao Da's slaves, you would have never been given such a gift by Lao Da. Benzun would have never consented to allowing you inside. I'm warning you, the matters regarding the secret territory cannot be spread out. If you dare to even leak one character outside, I'll immediately let you become a departed spirit. Shi-jia and the others only considered this for a second before they understood the severity behind these words. This was Sealed Domain's secret territory. Countless nascent soul martial artists wished to plunder it. If outsiders knew that their Miss owned it now, wouldn't all the martial artists in Miluo continent look at Miss as a target to plunder and chase? At once, Shi-jia and the others kneeled down to Hushi. Miss, be at ease. We swear we won't leak out anything regarding Sealed Dragon Domain to anyone else. If we go against this oath, lightning will strike us and we'll die without a corpse. Hushi waved her hand, faintly saying, First, you guys go build a few simple residences. Afterwards, everyone come down and find a nice place to bury wet Nurse Chen. Shi-jia and the others repeatedly answered yes, then they quickly got busy. Previously, although they passed comfortable lives inside Nalan Manor's B courtyard and their strength made progress, they were at a loss and confused. But today, they saw Sealed Dragon Domain's heavenly paradise. All their confusion and loss disappeared. At this moment, Shi-san, Shi-jia, and the others no longer had any doubts. Chapter 410 Cultivation Plan. As long as they followed Miss, they would definitely become strong. Moreover, they would become stronger than they didn't even dare to dream of before. There weren't any talented builders in Shi-jia and the others, so naturally, the buildings they made couldn't be said to be cozy. On the second day, after seeing everyone cuddled together with her, and the several things pressed down on her, causing her to become numb, Hushi rose up with the intention to pick some slaves. Specifically skilled slaves. Furthermore, the most important matter today was to prepare the training plan for the people by her side. Her bringing Xiaoli, Shi-jia, and the others in here wasn't to let them peacefully play inside Greenwood Realm. Rather, she wanted to train them, to let them become powerful. The realms in Sealed Dragon Territory, aside from Greenwood Realm, were Water Moon Realm, Burning Heaven Realm, Ice Snow Realm, and Desolate Desert Realm. Among these, Burning Heaven Realm, Ice Snow Realm, and Desolate Desert Realm's terrain were particularly nasty. There were a good deal of magical beasts roaming around. It could be said to be the best place for martial artists to refine and train their bodies. Previously, Hushi had no means to let Shi-jia and the others refine their bodies. Apart from letting them train their bodies by refining pills for them, there weren't any other alternatives. But after her visit to the 100 Herb Mist, she obtained various refining body methods. Some were ones that she plundered, and some were exchanged for the antidote. Among these was a method called demonic terminating method. She really admired it. This method didn't require one to be a cultivator. They only had to have a high amount of natural talent. But the cultivation process required the body to suffer an enormous amount of pain for a short period of time. It needed someone who was extremely tough and had a lot of willpower. And Shi Jia and the others were slaves. They had passed through many masters, suffered much pain and humiliation. This type of person's temperament would be tough, and they would desire power. She could see this through the previous mission she gave them. No matter how bitter or tired they were, nobody complained or became lazy. As long as one could endure the cultivation process pain, suffering, and forging, one could achieve demonic gold body. In Miluo continent, this so-called demonic gold body was practically equal to the existence of an undying body. Even a hit from a nascent soul stage martial artist, using their full strength, wouldn't be strong enough to take them down. Of course, the description of the method said that Miluo continent never had anyone who obtained demonic gold body. Even if the people who obtained earthly demon gold body was exceptionally few, earthly demon gold body was equivalent to the cultivation of the summit of gold core stage. If Shi Jia and the others were able to achieve this stage, they could be considered to have the utmost capability to protect themselves in Miluo continent. Shi gave Shi Jia and the other 10 people 3 tasks in order to assess them. They could only leave burning heaven, ice and snow, and desolate desert realm after they finished cultivating and went through the trial. And if they passed the trial and achieved foundation establishment stage, Shi Jia and the others could begin to cultivate demonic terminating method. After arranging Shi Jia and the several other people's cultivation plan, the next person was Xiaoli. Xiaoli's innate talent was extraordinary. However, she practiced enchanted power. The spiritual beasts inside this sealed dragon domain were abundant. It was suited for martial artists to cultivate. But it wasn't suitable for the enchanted race to cultivate. Moreover, Dan Dan and the little dragon could cultivate in her Shumi mustard subspace, slowly promoting their strength. Only Xiaoli didn't have much of a helping hand in her space. Even the 9th secluded spring water seemed to lose its effect after she drank half of it. After muttering to herself for a moment, she asked for Xiaoli's opinion. Sealed Dragon Domain doesn't have any enchanted power. It's not suited for you to cultivate. If you want to become strong, you have 2 alternatives right now. One way is to leave me and go to the magical beast forest. There's an abundant amount of enchanted energy there. It can help you advance in your cultivation. I'll give you a life-saving jade slip if you meet some calamity. I don't want to leave, miss. Shi didn't get to finish speaking before Xiaoli threw herself into her arms and impatiently said, I promised Gidge I would follow by Miss' side. Moreover, I would hate to part with Miss. Miss, can you not push me away? Shi rubbed her head and helplessly replied, I didn't want to push you away. It's just that, the second option is rather dangerous. Not only that, it'll raise your murderous thoughts. You're still young. I originally didn't wish for you to. I'm not afraid of danger nor murderous thoughts. Xiaoli's face was firm. Clenching her fist, she vowed, I want to become extremely strong and powerful, so I can help out Mississippi, so I can protect Miss and Gidge. Shi nodded her head. Since it's like this, then I'll send you to Desolate Desert Realm's Black Desert. But it isn't as safe as a training location as Shi Jia and the others. Rather, it's the desert with the most concentrated amount of magical beasts. Although Sealed Dragon Domain doesn't contain enchanted power, the internal core of the magical beasts contains a large quantity of enchanted power. If you refine their internal cores, you can change them into enchanted power to cultivate. But the magical beasts inside Desolate Desert Realm's Black Desert are incomparably cruel and powerful. And they have already lost all rationality long ago. All that's left is a bloodthirsty instinct. Even with your charming ability and ability to talk to all creatures, they would be unable to display affection. There will be nothing but continuous battling before you can obtain what you want. With it like this, do you still wish to go and try your hand? Without the slightest hesitation, Xiaoli nodded her head. Her snowy face didn't have any trace of wavering. I want to go. As long as I can help, miss. I'm not afraid of any hardship. Not only that, Miss is so awesome. Xiaoli doesn't wish to pull Miss' leg. Xiaoli, Shijia, and the others were quickly sent into the desolate desert realm. The little golden dragon also began its cultivation inside her space. All that was left was Dan Dan, the little foodie. As before, he ate fine foods, slept, and he rolled about in all types of fields, acting cute and spoiled. His days couldn't have been passed more comfortably. But in Hushy's heart, Dan Dan was different. Dan Dan was her closest relative in this world. Hushy wished to pamper him, indulge him, and give him the happiest and most comfortable life. As for Hushy, she wouldn't let herself waste any second of time that could be used to let herself become stronger. After settling everyone, she quickly entered her space and began to cultivate non-stop. The methods in Hushy's hands currently weren't few, but after she began to cultivate the Mahao inheritance, these methods, that she had taken from the hands of other martial artists, couldn't meet her eyes. But Hushy also discovered an odd thing. Because her body possessed the 5 elements of spiritual power, Hushy originally wanted to study all the attributes of the method, so she could balance her cultivation. After all, nowadays she used her fire and water attributes the most, much more compared to her other attributes. But after searching through the methods, she discovered to her shock, there wasn't any method correlating to the wood attribute. In addition, she remembered that in the overflowing pill cauldron scripture, it had clearly said that the wood attribute was considered the strongest attribute for a doctor, representing the origin and recovery of one's life. But she had never seen anyone using a wooden attribute to treat injuries before in these ancient books or records. Truly is strange. Don't tell her that this method was incomplete, and only the wood attribute was missing. For a moment, Hushy was at a loss. But then she no longer thought about this problem and began to earnestly practice the Maha inheritance. The terror and power of this inheritance was evident in her battle with Elder Jiang. It caused Hushy to feel unlimited yearning and confidence towards it. If so, she could replicate her capabilities at the time and completely copy her opponent's unique skills. So in this way, wouldn't she be invincible? But what caused Hushy to feel gloomy was that ever since she had ignited her dantian, she was unable to attain a clear meditative state. When she was in B courtyard, she allowed Wu Xian to display his unique skill. After trying to duplicate it, she couldn't. Hushy sat cross-legged inside the mustard subspace of the Spirit Ferment Palace Hall. She was recalling the scene of her and Elder Jiang fighting earlier. Alongside the images of their fighting slowly playing out in her mind, the spiritual power in her body began to flow along a predetermined trajectory. The spiritual power began to revolve faster and faster. Soon, a small whirlpool appeared in her dantian. When these whirlpools appeared, Hushy found that her senses became unprecedentedly keen and penetrating. Everything around her became incomparably wonderful. It was as if it had become a part of her body. There weren't any secrets. She could even sense the spiritual qi and nutrient transportation in the spiritual plants located in the medicinal field. She could detect each inhabitant in the soil of the ancient rhyme spiritual field. Obviously, she had not used any godly records. But when she closed her eyes, she could clearly see everything, within 10 meters, inside and outside her space. This feeling was truly too profound. Not only was her perception magnified, it seemed like she had become the master of this piece of land. If Hushy stayed in this world for a bit longer, she would come to understand that this state is called clear meditation. In Miluo continent, even if one was a high-ranked nascent soul-stage martial artist, it was impossible to attain. This mental state was classified as something in legends. The Maha inheritance's function was to speed up the cultivator's spiritual power revolving and forcibly reach this state. But, with Hushy's current spiritual power, she was only able to stay in this state for a second before she was forced out. After a month passed, when Hushy left her space, she felt defeated. Throughout this month, without rest, she had squeezed out her spiritual power to practice the Maha inheritance. But after a month had flown by, she was only able to touch the doorstep of the Maha inheritance. As for the clear meditation state that allowed her to replicate others' abilities, she was only able to stay in it for 3 seconds. 3 seconds, this was too short. Wanting to learn other people's abilities in 3 seconds was a fantasy. Hearing Hushy's unconscious grumbles, the little golden dragon, who was off to the side cultivating, felt the corner of his mouth twitching and his face was filled with secrecy. Lauda already earned an advantage but was still ungrateful. One had to understand that entering the Maha inheritance's doorway was the hardest step. In order for ordinary martial artists to even touch the doorstep of clear meditation, it would take them a year's time. His previous master was the creator of the Maha inheritance, but when he first replicated someone else's ability, he still failed. But his family's Lauda? On her first try, she was able to replicate 2 big skills. Currently, she was still at Meridian stage, and could already touch the doorstep to clear meditation. Yet she still feels it's too slow. Does she even let the other martial artists live? Chapter 413 Borderless Black Market. After exiting the mountain, Hushy first went to offer sacrifices to Wet Nurse Chen. Then she checked Xiaoli, Shijia, and the others' progress in their cultivation before she left Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory and returned to Bi Courtyard. Currently, Bi Courtyard at the foot of Tsang Mountain was completely different than she had left it. She didn't know where Shi-san had bought several servants from. They cleaned Bi Courtyard and left it neat and tidy. Currently, people were going in and out of Bi Courtyard. It was full of life. It contrasted against the previously bloody and gloomy scene. "Miss, you're here." When Shi-san saw Hushy, he was pleasantly surprised and immediately greeted her. Hushy nodded her head and offered a sentence of praise. Bi Courtyard has been managed quite well. Shi-san was brimming with happiness. His eyes were filled with cheerfulness and complacence. "Many thanks for Miss compliment. Xiaoda one doesn't have any cultivation skills and can't protect Miss like Shijia and the others can. I'm very happy to be able to handle matters for Mississippi." Shi-san welcomed Hushy into Bi Courtyard's central room to sit down, and he quickly arranged for some servant girls to deliver refreshments. Earlier, these servant girls and menservants already saw Hushy's portrait, therefore, they knew that she was this Bi Courtyard's true master. Naturally, Hushy had no interest towards these bland refreshments. She just softly turned her teacup around as she listened to Shi-san report what had happened these past few days. "Miss, you don't know, last time, when you gave me the supplement spirit pill before you entered Sealed Dragon Domain, I went to get it appraised at Royal Medicine Courtyard. In the end, the result of the evaluation alarmed the manager of the Medicine Courtyard. Including crystal spiritual power, the pill's pure essence was 99%. Ah, miss, you didn't see the look of that group of people's eyes bulging out. The group of people captured me, wishing they could immediately sign a big order with me." Hushy raised her eyebrow. "Did you sign with them?" "Where would I dare to, ah?" Shi-san promptly responded. "Xiaoda understands the argument Miss previously said about money not being able to be revealed. If Xiaoda signs a contract with Royal Medicine Courtyard's people, it would be easy for them to track everything back to here. Therefore, Xiaoda just obtained the evaluation list before secretly running away. Afterward, I put the pill on sale in black market." Speaking up to here, Shi-san saw that Hushy's eyes were already bright, full of admiration and disbelief. Hey miss, do you know how high the price was raised for this supplement spirit pills? In the beginning, it was only 2,000 yuan crystals per pill. Moreover, there were also some people in the black market who cursed those people as fools, certain that I had tricked them with fake appraisal documents. Shi-san still remembered the reversal and disturbance in the black market over these supplement spirit pills, several days before. He colorfully and vividly described everything, from start to finish, that happened these few days in the black market to Hushy, who was listening with interest. Originally, there were some mysterious, fantasy novels that mentioned Miluo Continent's borderless black market online. In her previous life, the person who established the boundless black market was an unknown, almighty person. He opened a fictitious room. All martial artists could link their soul to the black market through the provided jade slips. At the same time, martial artists could engrave products' attributes and information in images to put for sale in this boundless black market. Naturally, For Boundless Black Market to be able to do such business deals, the most important factor was that the creator had a very powerful refining tools expert. They created a sort of mechanism. Its speed was extremely fast. It could travel 1,000 miles in a day, and its protective quality was very high. It was extremely secretive. It could transport purchased and sold items through long distances. Naturally, the pills and magic weapons sold on the black market couldn't be bought at real prices. In addition, Boundless Black Market also had to successfully transport the items, but its secrecy was very strong. It didn't attract much attention. Chapter 4:14 Billionaire. Shisan gave Hushi the 2,000 yuan crystals that the replenishing spirit pill was sold at. This already surpassed the price of the top-quality replenishing spirit pill. Naturally, nobody wanted to buy it in the beginning. But 3 days after the first replenishing spirit pill had been sold, suddenly the rest of the replenishing spirit pills he put up for sale had all been bought. And the black market's interaction page, which had been silent for a few years, suddenly blew up. Wow, crazy! My Didi ate 3 of those 2,000 yuan crystal replenishing spirit pills, and he directly advanced to foundation establishment stage. But I wanted to buy some, but unexpectedly, you can't buy any more. Me too, I bought that high-quality replenishing spirit pill, and went to go fight in my sect. In the middle of the battle, I swallowed a replenishing spirit pill, and my spiritual power instantly replenished. To my surprise, I even defeated the most powerful senior brother of the outside sect. Wow, from now on, I'm a disciple of the inner sect. In the end, which great person refined this replenishing spirit pill? So powerful of a spiritual force. Such a terrifying amount of essence purity. Unexpectedly, it's only first rank, even Qi refining stage martial artists can take it. All the martial artists, that habitually bought medicinal pills off the black market, had gone crazy over these outrageous replenishing spirit pills. How many people had used their mysterious jade slips to link back into the black market's virtual space, just to be able to immediately snatch these pills away? Naturally, Shisan also quickly discovered this grand occasion. Therefore, he raised the price of each replenishing spirit pill to 10,000 yuan crystals. But, despite the price being so terrifyingly high, each time more pills were put up for sale, they were immediately sold out. And when the pills Shisan had on hand were all sold away, everyone was wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves on the black market's interaction page. Every day, people would yell, why weren't the top-quality replenishing spirit pills being sold anymore? Hushi watched as Shisan took out rows of storage rings. The corner of her mouth twitched. These rings were completely filled with the yuan crystals they had earned from their business. Shisan mischievously laughed as he pointed towards the first row of rings. These are the money collected from the flying swords Miss had me sell, as well as the method records. Altogether, we earned 98,530,000 yuan crystals. Afterwards, he pointed towards the back row of rings. These are from the replenishing spirit pills that Miss gave me. There are also some other yuan crystals gained from selling other pills. Altogether, it's 660 yuan crystals. In other words, she had turned from a poverty-stricken peasant to a billionaire. What was most terrifying was the fact that this was only a third of it. She earned this amount with the pills she had refined out of convenience. Although the magic weapons she handed to Shisan were those that she deemed unable to reach her eyes, but the replenishing spirit pills could be sold for even more than the magic weapons. This was too outrageous. But when Hushi turned her head to ponder for a moment, she recalled the scene of that group of people who threw out countless yuan crystals to buy the furnace. Immediately after, she felt relieved. In reality, 100 million yuan crystals wasn't much. Especially because she wished to help a group of people promote their cultivation levels. Hushi threw a few storage rings to Shisan, faintly saying, "Go to Pig Market to select some slaves. When selecting, pay attention to their behavior, ability to work hard and endure hardships. Innate skill isn't crucial. The remaining money can be used to employ some subordinates and guards for yourself." Every day, Shisan ran about outside. He was also in contact with many wealthy individuals. Safety needed to be ensured. Shisan was overjoyed he didn't decline. After taking the ring, He kowtowed to Hushi several times, his face was full of smiles. Have there been any other matters lately? Upon hearing what she said at once he replied. Indeed, there are 2 things Miss needs to be informed of. Senior Wu Xian wishes for me to tell Miss. Hell King Manor has received an invitation from Ouyang family. The content of the invitation wishes for His Highness Hell King to pass on this information. They wish to invite you, Miss, to attend Jinling's annual hunting competition. Shisan handed Hushi the jade slip. She looked it over it for a moment, and her heart rate began to speed up. This year's annual hunting competition had Ouyang Haoshuan's father, Ouyang Zhixiong, overseeing it. Furthermore, the prize was a 4th-rank fire-binding method. Nowadays, what Hushi lacked the most of were high-level attribute cultivation methods. Naturally, this reward was quite tempting to her. She nodded her head and said, Tell Wu Xian to inform Ouyang family that I will participate. What was the other matter? From his bosom, Shisan took out another paper and handed it to Hushi. A few days ago there was a magic record that flew into B courtyard. Subordinate doesn't know what this is either. When Hushi looked upon the magic record, she was startled. This was a talisman. Originally, the male who had his wife and children murdered by Feng Lianing gave her a 1,000-mile transmitting talisman to be able to inform her of the time when he found Feng Lianing, so that she could take revenge for him. After leaving, this middle-aged man had given her a few more transmitting talisman. These transmitting talisman were much better compared to Miluo continent's summoning jade slips. The information it could transmit was much clearer and detailed. Therefore, at the time, Hushi had given Gu Lufeng, Nangongyu, and Wu Yu a few. Then, why would there be a transmitting talisman that flew into B courtyard? Hushi used spiritual force to ignite the transmitting talisman, and immediately heard Zhou Yan'an's hoarse voice, which was filled with despair. Sorry, Shigongzi. Originally, we agreed for you to come to Shengda Hall to treat someone. 1 month later, you need not come anymore. No. By all means, you must not come. Must not come by all means? Hushi's eyebrows pursued. Why would Zhou Yan'an request this? What happened? Zhou Yan'an didn't wish for her to go look. As expected, Hushi must go take a look. Early in the morning, on the 2nd day, Hushi had already left B courtyard, early on, to head towards Yanjing City. Before entering Yanjing City, she changed herself into an ordinary youngster. Before she walked onto the East Street, Hushi heard the sounds of a racket, the sounds of screaming voices. Today Ji Sheng Hall opened for business again. In order to express gratitude to everyone, anyone who purchases pills from my medicine hall will also receive a free inspection from Dr. Gu. The people in the crowd let out enthusiastic cheers, surrounding Ji Sheng Hall in an impenetrable crowd. Although that Dr. Gu was merely a first-rank doctor, but doctors were uncommon and arrogant. Examining people, free of charge today, this was a good matter that couldn't be requested of. Hushi looked at the lively scene in front of her, then looked towards Ji Sheng Hall's tightly closed doors. It gave a cold and deserted feeling. She deeply pursued her eyebrows. She lightly knocked on the door. There weren't any noises coming from inside, and nobody came to answer. Then she suddenly heard a little manservant's cordial voice. This Gongzi, do you wish to buy medicinal pills? Would it be better to come inside Ji Sheng Hall to take a look? We've just received large quantities of medicinal pills. We have whatever attribute or type you have. When Hushi turned her head, she saw someone coming over and was startled. She recognized this little manservant. He once ran errands inside Shengda Hall. But now this person ran to Shengji Hall to be a manservant. What happened during this month? What about Zhou Yan'an and Gu Lufeng? Chapter 416 Shengda Hall is bankrupt. Hushi muttered to herself for a moment. Then she suddenly took a crystal stone out of her bosom and waved it in front of the little manservant. Tell me what happened in Shengda Hall, and this crystal stone is yours. If what you tell me is very detailed, I'll give you an even larger reward. When the little manservant saw the crystal stone, his eyes brightened. At once, he lowered his voice and narrated what happened from start to finish. Originally, 1 month before, The matters regarding Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory hadn't been settled for long, when suddenly, rumors spread across the capital about Gu Lufeng. Some said that Sheng De Hall's master, Gu Lufeng, was actually Morong family's BAS, Morong Lufeng. Some people also said that, in Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory, this Morong Lufeng was unfilial. Unexpectedly, he used crafty plots and machinations to murder Morong family's elder and head of the household. Because of this information, people in Yanjing City were criticizing Sheng De Hall. Sheng De Hall, that was originally charitable and prestigious in the people's eyes, suffered under people's boycotting. Adding on to this fact was that during this period of time, the medicinal ingredients and pills they could obtain became less and less. This also caused their business to slowly become bleaker and bleaker. The little manservant sighed. At that time, I was also Sheng De Hall's manservant. The circumstances in the shop were so terrible, it spoiled shopkeeper Zhou. But one didn't expect that even worse things were yet to come. A few days prior, there was suddenly a group of people who charged into Sheng De Hall, wanting to take away our master. This group of people called themselves Morong family's people. They came over to clean up the door. At first, the master also fought with this group of people. Sheng De Hall was smashed into pieces, nearly drawing the guards over. But suddenly the fighting stopped. Master didn't retaliate, even a little bit, and was beat senseless by this group of people. Afterward, they even took Master away. A sad expression appeared on the little manservant's face. Shopkeeper and Master were both very good to us. If it was possible, we wouldn't want to leave. But Master is gone naturally. Sheng De Hall can't continue running. Actually, the massacre of Ji Sheng Hall, from 1 month previous, has yet to be forgotten. Didn't expect that it started again now, infecting elsewhere. I also need to support my family, so... Hushi threw 2 crystal stones to the little manservant, sending him away. Then, she stood in the doorway of Sheng De Hall, contemplating. Suddenly, she sensed a faint breath on the 2nd floor. This breath was very hidden. If it weren't for Hushi's meticulous searching, she wouldn't be able to find anything. Hushi's eyes concentrated and her figure suddenly flashed, jumping onto Sheng De Hall's 2nd floor. The 2nd floor's sliding window seemed to have been smashed, half open in the air. As the wind was blowing over, a creaking and crunching sound was heard. Just when Hushi jumped through the window, she felt an icy sword's chi hitting her in the face. This sword's chi wasn't very great, but it was filled with the intent of ending in mutual destruction. Furthermore, the might wasn't small. It scared Hushi a bit. Fortunately, the purple abyss vine in her hands reacted quickly. Immediately, it flew out, blocking this strike. Naturally, the purple abyss vine was very angry that Hushi was being attacked. Screaming, it wanted to go and tear the person, attacking Hushi, into pieces and suck the person clean. But Hushi's left hand merely beckoned and pulled the purple abyss vine back. Her eyes were attentively staring at the person hidden in a secret place, saying, "Zhou Yenan, come out." From the darkness, a faintly shivering body slowly walked out. His hand still held onto the flying sword. His eyes were red as he stared at Hushi. With a fighting attitude he said, "Young master has already been taken away by you guys. What are you guys coming to do? Where is young master? What did you do to him?" Chapter 417. In the end, what happened? Hushi slightly frowned. She used her hand to wipe her face and take off her disguise. Lowering her voice, "Zhou Yenan, clearly look at who I am. Shi Gongzi." There was the sound of something clattering, and the flying sword fell to the ground. Zhou Yenan seemed to be like a deflated ball. His 2 knees were soft, falling to the floor. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and his face had a bit of alarm on it. He repeatedly said, "Shi Gongzi, no. Genius Dr. Shi, you quickly leave. Don't come here again." Before young master left, he said to tell you to no longer speak to him. He doesn't want you to be implicated alongside him. That agreement is dropped. Shi Gongzi, quickly leave. On the contrary, Hushi didn't leave. Instead, she began to speak in a cold tone. "You joke you let me come and I'll come? Let me leave and I'll leave? I, Shiyu, will always keep my word on the things I've agreed to. I disdain not returning kindness even more. Speak, what happened to Gu Lufeng? In a daze, Zhou Yan'an looked at Hushi. The youth in front of him had handsome eyebrows and phoenix eyes. His skin was like jade. Clearly he looked like a weak youth. Clearly he was no more than foundation establishment stage. But he always emitted an imposing manner. It seemed as if, no matter how big a plight it was, he could settle it. It seemed like, no matter how challenging or dangerous something was, as long as he was there, they would be able to overcome any difficulties. Zhou Yan'an thought of what happened inside Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory. When confronting the formidable Ice Lotus Fairy, he, as a gold core stage martial artist, could only give up all hope and wait to die. But he would try his best when fighting the Ice Lotus Fairy, even going as far as to injure her. If it was this youth's words, perhaps there's still a chance for young master to be saved? A rush of hope bubbled forth in Zhou Yan'an's heart. He knew very well that this kind of mood was preposterous, but he couldn't help but want to continue to believe in and pray for this mere foundation establishment stage youth. After exiting the secret territory, it was very hard on our Shengda Hall. Not only was it Murong family, there's also a large power in the back that's also suppressing us. Inside Yanjing City, there are many people who spoke of the news of young master. Our means of replenishing stock also became an issue. The medicinal hall's business took a devastating decline. At the time, young master seemed to already have a premonition. He even said if something happened to him, I should send a letter to Shigongzi, telling you not to come here at all costs. What young master didn't want to happen was to include you. Hashi frowned and replied, as far as I know, Murong family only has one high-level gold core stage martial artist. It was Murong Hai, who died in the secret territory. The remaining people, even if there was a gold core stage, they wouldn't be Gu Liufeng's opponent. If Gu Lufeng had the thought to run, how could there be someone who took him away? Zhou Yan'an tearfully wiped at his face. In the beginning, young master beat the people who come into a sorry state. But afterwards, one person among them was the surrogate head of the household for Murong family, Murong Feng. He took out a jade slip to give to young master to see. After young master saw the jade slip, his complexion changed. Then, that Murong Feng also said that if young master didn't follow him back, he would announce the contents of the jade slip to everyone. This caused young master to not have the face to keep living anymore. Afterwards, young master gave up resisting and allowed those people to take him away. Hashi frowned. What was inside the jade slip? I don't know either, but it must be something that young master wouldn't want others to know, even if he died. Zhou Yan'an recalled young master's appearance when he was leaving. It was full of despair. He couldn't help but feel a burst of chilliness in his heart. His voice began to shudder. Shigongzi, do you have methods to save young master? Young master has already suffered under their hands for a few days now. This group of beasts, I really don't know how they'll torture young master. If I could, I would want to rush up and fight with them, but I'm too weak. I'm a gold core stage martial artist, but I don't know any magical techniques. Shigongzi, I'm begging you to save young master. Darkness is falling. There are a sea of stars. The entirety of Yanjing City was enveloped in a tranquil, hazy ambience. Hushi lowered the spiritual power in her body and changed to Qinggong. Her whole body resembled a swallow as she traversed across Yanjing City's streets. Yanjing City prevented flying and fighting inside the city. If a martial artist used spiritual power to fly, the Imperial City's large-scale spiritual restriction barrier would discover them, and the martial artist would also receive a severe punishment. But Hushi's Qinggong couldn't be detected by any spiritual restriction barrier. She soared high in the air, while using the divine knowledge to try and figure out what the information on Murong family was on the jade slip. After looking through all the information, Hushi pursued her brows. Her face let out a confused expression. Suddenly, a small golden dragon's head poked out from her collar and softly said in her ears, Lauda, what's up? Is it that this Murong manor is very hard to deal with? How about we call upon Wu Xian, that little fellow? Currently Wu Xian was still in Song Mountain. Although he wasn't inside Sealed Dragon Domain's secret territory, he was somewhere near it. The spiritual qi there was very advantageous towards cultivators. Coupled with high interest, you could see Tsang Mountain's entire circumstances at a glance. Therefore, as long as anyone entered Tsang Mountain, Wu Xian would become aware. Of course, if Hushi encountered any danger on her part, the mind brand that Wu Xian left on her would stir up. He would then immediately rush over and help her. Hushi shook her head and softly replied, "It's exactly the opposite. From these resources, this Morong manor is possibly weak. But I'm not sure why. In spite of everything, they're able to become one of the 4 biggest families in Yanjing City." One had to understand that Yanjing City's 4 biggest families, most has their own characteristics. Each has their own respective domain. For example, Nalan Manor's Nalanjung's medical expertise level was the highest in Jinling Kingdom. He was a high-level doctor in the imperial family, and he was also a member in the Doctor Association. Most of all, the 9 unequal wrongs pill in his hands was the pill everyone in the cultivation world wanted. Currently, Ouyang family was in Ouyang Zhixiong's control, passed under direct blood descendants. The talented persons in the collateral family withered. It was nearly 10 years and there weren't any high-level martial artists. But for many generations, Ouyang family held on to 100,000 soldiers. They had Jinling Kingdom's royal family's deep trust as well as Ouyang Haoshuan's outstanding aptitude. Therefore, their position as one of the biggest families was steady. After nearly 10 years, Huangfu family finally raised a powerful person. In a short while the clan suddenly had 5 high-level martial artists. Moreover, Huangfu's main elder seemed to be about to advance to nascent soul stage. With this sort of peak strength, it caused Huangfu family to jump to one of the 4 best families. Rather than running neck and neck with the other 3 major families, it seemed to have power that slightly surpassed the other 3. But only this Morong family caused Hushi to become extremely puzzled. Although Morong Manor also had business in medicine, there were also experts inside the clan who were able to refine pills. But their levels couldn't even match up to Nalanjing's. And Morong family's gold core expert paled so much in comparison, it was pitiful. Only the 2 gold core stages clan head and elder died in sealed dragon domain. But even like this, it didn't budge Morong family's position as one of the most powerful families. Who was Morong family relying on? By the time Hushi arrived at Morong Manor, darkness had already fully settled. In one leap, Hushi jumped to the highest roof. Just as she was about to come down and explore, she felt her heart tremble. She forgot to breath and let Dan Dan conceal any motion of her spiritual power before she cautiously began to explore. Morong Manor's layout was similar to a Sihiyuan, one in her previous life. They used tall perimeters to surround everything, and on the wall, they had drawn many restrictions. Anyone with spiritual power who entered would stir up the restriction. Inside the manor, there were patrolling guards everywhere. Every 3 steps was a whistle and every 5 was a post. This small Morong manor was guarded with an iron fist. The little golden dragon couldn't resist using the divine knowledge to say in Hushi's mind, "Not sure how much shady business this Morong manor has hidden away." Ben Zun has seen the guards in the imperial palace before. They weren't as tight to this degree. In the end, he still hasn't forgot to lick Hushi's boots. Fortunately, Lauda has amazing skills, not a cultivated body nor a cultivated spirit. When pushing through this method, you didn't even touch the barrier. That awesome ability is from your blood. Next time call on me, okay? But Hushi had no time to pay attention to the little golden dragon's chatter. Her gaze was firmly glued on a nearby courtyard and her expression was grave. All she saw was a cloaked male, on top of the eaves of that courtyard, speaking to a middle-aged man. This cloaked person's breath was barely sensible, and his spiritual power didn't have any movements. But, by instinct, Hushi was tense from head to toe. A little bit of cold sweat seeped out of her palms. This cloaked person's strength wasn't simple. He was at least several times stronger than Elder Jiang. Although Hushi hadn't seen this middle-aged man before, she could tell by his style of clothing that he was someone from Morong Manor. Moreover, his status was definitely high. But at this moment, the middle-aged man had a respectful and fearful appearance when speaking to the cloaked man. Even his eyes were facing the floor, not daring to randomly look around. Hushi poured her internal power into her ears and began to listen in on the two people's conversation. Reporting to Superior, all the pills have been refined. Requesting you to check over them. While speaking, the middle-aged man took out a storage bag and respectfully handed it over to the cloaked man. The cloaked man held the storage bag and quickly checked it over. Then he replied, pleased, very good. I'll definitely pay back Elder Morong for his contributions. When that time comes, there will definitely be many benefits for you. As long as Morong family properly handles affairs for us, there will be a day when the head of the 4 biggest families will be you. The cloaked man's voice was hoarse and gloomy, but it sounded vague and fuzzy. Clearly he had altered his voice. When the middle-aged man heard this, he was overjoyed with good news. Superior Xia, my Morong family developing into how it is today. We definitely won't forget Superior Xia's support and kindness. The cloaked man satisfyingly nodded his hand and put the storage bag away. Then he threw another storage bag to him. This is the second half of the year's material. Properly store this away. You must deliver these goods on time. The cloaked man's words hadn't finished yet before his expression suddenly turned cold. Suddenly he turned his head and looked in Hushi's direction. At once the middle-aged man nervously asked, Superior, what's wrong? It's nothing. The cloaked man confusedly shook his head and immediately mumbled. Don't tell me it was my imagination? It must be my imagination. If there was someone, how can they escape from my divine knowledge's examining? Soon after, the cloaked man and middle-aged man left together. Hushi, who was concealed on the rooftop, finally let out a loose breath. Immediately after, she unhappily swept the little golden dragon's head. 1 Sihiyuan. It's a historical residence found mainly in China. The Wikipedia page has more information if you're interested. The little golden dragon knew he was wrong and his horn drooped down. Lauda, I was wrong. I didn't expect that all-black person to be so great. I only spit out a breath. Fortunately, Lauda was quick to react and threw me into your space. Hushi coldly snorted and didn't pay attention to it. She made sure the cloaked man was far away before jumping off the roof. Now the most important thing was to find who was controlling everything and have him lead her to where Gu Lufeng was imprisoned. In the cold and gloomy underground dungeon a scarlet flame was burning. 3 guards wearing black clothes were currently adding more coal to the fire and placing an iron stove above it. Following the fire burning more and more, the iron stove let out zzz sounds. In this dark environment, just hearing these noises would turn your scalp numb. Morong Manor's prisoner interrogation room wasn't big, nor did it have a bloody smell. But there were shackles, whips, and poison stingers on the wall. The entire prisoner room only had one captive who seemed to be no more than 20 years old. All 4 limbs of the youth's body were firmly shackled to shelves by black chains. So much so that even his neck, wrist, and ankles had something similar twisted around them. Their entire person was rigidly stuck to the wall, unable to move even an inch. The youth's face carried a strange, white mask. His clothes were disheveled, exposing a bruised and scar-riddled body. But this youth's body was excellent. The youth had broad shoulders, narrow buttocks, and fair skin. With the added scars on his body, he didn't seem to be a sorry figure. Instead, he looked even more sensational. The guard, who was roasting a flat iron in the fire, looked at the chained-up youth several times. In the end, he couldn't help but remark, this 6th young master is truly very unyielding. He had been tortured for several days and still hasn't uttered a word. What 6th young master? Another guard disdainfully replied. He's nothing more than a scoundrel who shamelessly betrayed Morong family. What young master? He'll soon turn into a lunatic, just like that mother of his. I've heard this Morong Lufeng has the cultivation of a gold core summit stage. I didn't expect he would be so easily taken into our Morong family. Looking at his pitiful and miserable appearance, he doesn't look like a gold core stage at all. He may as well be a normal person. Together, the 3 guards laughed. They were just about to say another round of insults to the prisoner when suddenly, heavy footsteps sounded from the doorway. The prison door was quickly opened and a tall figure appeared in the doorway. All of you get out. Guard the doorway. have some words I want to say to my 6D, alone. The youth that appeared in the doorway looked to be about 27 or 28 years old. His appearance could be said to be handsome and bright, but his eyes were slightly picked up, his nose was curved, and his eyes were flickering. His entire aura seemed to be someone who did good deeds in secret. When the three guards see the young man, their eyes all held fear in them and they simultaneously greeted him. Third young master. The person who arrived was Murong Linfeng, the unsurpassed in talent and rarely seen third generation. At such a young age he was already at the summit of Meridian's stage. But when compared to Gu Lufeng, his advancement speed wasn't anything to look at. Murong Linfeng looked at the three guards who were looking at each other in dismay. Immediately, his expression turned cold. The spiritual power in his hands suddenly rolled, and the whip that was boiling in the iron stove suddenly appeared in his hand. Caution: somewhat adult/NSFW themes are present in this chapter. Read at your own risk. He ruthlessly struck them with his whip, whipping the three guards until they were dripping with blood. What? I'm not your master? You don't need to listen to me anymore? Those three guards got whipped until they were wailing like ghosts. They didn't dare to hesitate anymore, and ran out of the dungeon crying. The prison door heavily closed with a deafening sound. Gu Lufeng, who originally drooped his head, raised his head to coldly look at the male in front of him. Murong Linfeng walked forward a few steps and met his gaze. But he excitedly laughed. 6D, I love your pair of eyes the most. Especially when they're filled with anger, it truly enchants people. Loathing and killing intent flashed through Gu Liufeng's eyes. He turned his head to ruthlessly shake his hand and coldly said, Murong Linfeng, you still dare to come here? Are you not scared that dignified father of yours won't whip you? Murong Linfeng's face let out a proud expression before he drew closer to Gu Lufeng and whispered, with great pains, I waited until today. Today my father has to entertain people, or would he have the time to care about you, you little bai? Finished speaking, he extended his hand and with one move, he took Gu Liufeng's mask off. Once the mask was gone, it was replaced by a pale but beautiful appearance. Although his face had dark red scars, under the scarlet flame's illumination, his face seemed more seductive rather than ugly. Murong Linfeng obsessively reached his hand out to caress Gu Liufeng's face. His face was filled with intoxication and greed. See, this is such a perfect face, ah. This young master has never seen such a man that was as beautiful as 6D. 6D, do you know? Murong Linfeng's burning gaze looked at Gu Lufeng with red eyes. His hoarse voice carried a trace of craziness. Every time I see those beautiful men and women, 6D's face appears before my eyes. Each time I'm with them, I also call 6D's name. Not being able to obtain 6D over so many years is my biggest regret. Finished speaking, Murong Linfeng started to loudly laugh. His voice was filled with savageness. Today, I can finally fulfill all my desires. Ice cold, satiny fingers pinched at his chin. It seemed like a snake's skin. Gu Lufeng felt bursts of nausea. Immediately after, bursts of cold killing intent rose up in his heart. Murong Lufeng, release your filthy hand, if not, I'll let you regret it for a lifetime. Ha ha ha, 6D. I didn't expect that you would still threaten me when death is so near. Murong Linfeng looked at his extremely angered appearance. But he felt even more proud of himself and became even more infatuated. Do you have the ability to come kill me now, ah? Do you have the ability to resist right now? When this young master sees your angered and powerless appearance, I feel even happier. I can't wait to see your appearance when you're crying for forgiveness. After saying this, Murong Linfeng suddenly extended his hand and in one move, tore off Gu Liufeng's already torn clothing. Perfect flowing lines, fair skin, and purple bruises. All of this constructed a beautiful scene, causing Murong Linfeng to become startled. He swallowed his saliva and clicked his tongue. Really is a rarity, ah. My wanting and clamoring all these years wasn't a waste. Hee Murong Lufeng, what sort of strength do you have? You're nothing more than a lowly seed. You should be just like that cheap mother of yours, crawling under men's crotches. This young satyr agrees to you, you should feel grateful. Pili Pa La 1. Sounded as Gu Liufeng's black, iron chains began to violently shake. Gu Liufeng's 2 eyes filled with blood. The gaze he looked at Murong Linfeng with looked as if he wished to dismember his body into 10,000 pieces. Murong Linfeng got scared and staggered. He recoiled backwards a step, nearly falling over. But soon after, he realized that no matter how much Gu Lufeng struggled, those black, iron chains didn't budge. On the contrary, the iron rings on his hands and ankles were tightening, already drawing blood. When Murong Linfeng saw this, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. Bai, what are you struggling for? Are you wishing for this young master to come do to you? Be at ease, I'll quickly come satisfy you. Ha ha ha. Thinking that his long-awaited dreams and desires would soon be able to be satisfied, Murong Linfeng's face exposed an incomparably and greedy look. Tearing off his clothes, he threw himself towards Gu Lufeng. But before he could arrive at Gu Liufeng's side, a purple vine suddenly wrapped around his neck. That vine seemed to have its own consciousness. After wrapping itself around his neck, it tightened more and more, causing him to become incapable of breathing. Soon after, it hoisted him high up in the air. When Gu Lufeng laid his eyes upon that purple vine, disbelief appeared in his eyes. Following that, his expression lifelessly looked towards the prison doorway. At an unknown time, a tiny crack formed in the originally tightly shut doorway. A silhouette appeared in the doorway's crack and slowly appeared in front of Gu Lufeng. The scarlet flames shone upon the newly arrived person's white, jade-like face. Underneath those long eyelashes was purple, fluctuating phoenix eyes. Their bright, red lips softly began to open, exposing their pearly white teeth. In this gloomy and dark prison, the youth looked like a ray of bright light. With that sort of warmth and holiness, just by standing there, they caused people to become dazzled and stunned and feel ashamed of their own inferiority. Gu Lufeng mumbled. Shiyu. He only said this name and suddenly felt incomparable distress and dejection bubble forth in his heart. Just now, when he had been humiliated by Murong Linfeng, he felt angry and unconsciously sorrowful. But at this moment he could no longer hold back his tears. They dropped down onto the surface, turning ice cold. All along, Gu Lufeng didn't realize that he held such thoughts towards Shiyu. But at this moment he suddenly realized that towards this mysterious and formidable youth, this youth that, to an extent, was even more beautiful than woman, he felt that sort of admiration. But today, all of his admiration and kind feelings turned into desperation and shame from his own inferiority. He allowed little Schwer to see himself in such dire straits, such an unbearable scene. Would little Schwer see himself as dirty and cowardly? Would she look down on him just like the people of Murong family? Think that he would be the same as his mother, a slut that seduced men? How could Hushi's heart think of such complex matters as Gu Liufeng's heart was? With the wave of her hand, Murong Lufeng, who had been suspended in the air by the purple abyss vine, suddenly crashed down to the floor. The only sound that came was Pa Ji, and Murong Linfeng didn't even get to groan before he lost consciousness. In the prison, Hushi found a cage, but she couldn't find the key to the black, iron chains. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.